waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometers have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. It is the eve of New Year's Eve. I feel like I've been saying eve of Eve a lot because you've got all those days, don't you, in this time of year, that it's not the day or the day before the day, it's the day before the day before the day. But here we are. It is the eve of New Year's Eve, and I'm delighted to have your company, whatever it is you are doing. Hopefully you're sort of eyeball deep in some leftover Christmas alcohol, still picking crumbs of mince pie out of the bottom of your hair or your beard, eating some sort of gnarly old gammon, which is beginning to smell a little bit like somebody's socks, because that's how we roll, is it not? Anyway, there's a lot of fun and disturbing things to talk about today, because this is news in Britain, is it not, ladies and gentlemen? I'm pleased to report as well that I got so used to those people who listen regularly will know that I gave up life in London to go and live in the countryside, in the Gloucestershire Cotswolds. And it is so darling there. It is such a high-trust society. You know, you go into the town, drive your little car in, but it kind of feels like sacrilege when you've been living in London. Actually driving to go to a shop is like, whoa! But whatever you're doing, if you have to, like, you know, get things off the shelf and you put your bag down, well, that's all right, no one cares. Oh, no, not in London. I had dropped my guard, hadn't I? So I was just picking up something from a shop in the centre of London, which was my Christmas birthday present, little tweedy jacket. Got to get the Cotswolds uniform, am I right? And I was there trying it on, sending photos to my mum. What do you think of this? What about this colour? Da-da-da-da-da, go pay. Go. Oh yeah, someone nicked my bag. And of course, wise eggs say, report it to the police. And people who are living in London are like, yeah, nah. Really? What's the point? So there you go. Kicked off, well, not kicked off, I suppose, wrapped up 2025, pretty much the way it's been all year. London is a hellhole full of robbing, thieving people. And there is still real Britain out there, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope you live in one of those bits, one of those lovely monocultural high trust parts of the United Kingdom where you can basically, I don't know, lob your handbag in some sort of rugby throw up the high street, go and do 2 hours worth of shopping, come back, and what someone will have done is probably popped it on top of a bin or on a bench where you can see it if you happen to be looking for it. Because there are still corners of the UK like that. I just seemed to forget, didn't I? Because I now live in one, that those ain't the rules in the capital. Anyway, whoever has made off with my ancient bag will find nothing more than a car key they won't be able to use, and some bits of makeup and a phone charger. So, Yabu sucks. Right, OK. Let's... oh, by the way, if you want to comment on anything today, let's get this housekeeping out of the way, shall we? If you want to join the conversation and have a chit-chat with me, it is 03444 991 It's your normal network rate. If that's you who's nicked my handbag and has sort of seen my work pass and gone, I wonder who that bird is, and are watching right now, you suck. Phone up and confess. 8722 is the number if you'd like to send me a text message. Write the word talk before you text if you would rather send me a WhatsApp, or indeed leave me a voice note. Voice-o on WhatsApp. The number is 0344 499 1000. All right, let's get on with the show. Because first up, we've got the inimitable, the brilliant and the heroic Jake Wallace-Simons. How are you doing, Jake? How was your festive period?
Yeah, it was good, thank you. Yeah, it was my first Christmas that I've ever spent not drinking, so I feel very non-hangovered and also very smug. OK,
everyone cut him off. I don't want to speak to him. I don't think he belongs here. He doesn't sound like our audience. He certainly doesn't sound like anyone I consider a friend. But, you know, if you have a spare liver, I could do with one.
Yeah, it got to the point where it was either that or just keel over and become an alcoholic, so I chose the former.
Yeah, I'm still sort of, you know, making pains to get towards the latter. At some point, common sense might reach me first. Talking about common sense reaching people, doesn't seem to be in much of a large supply in the Home Office or in number 10, does it? The more we learn about our good friend, now fellow compatriot, Alaa Abdel Fattah, well, the more ridiculous it becomes. I've seen actual video footage of him now, banging on, saying things that he probably ought not to be saying. And 3 days before he was given the red carpet welcome by the Prime Minister himself, some random man in Egypt. Welcome. Everyone was queuing up, weren't they? You know, I'm surprised they didn't fly in by private jet and have like some sky scanner along with Santa's sleigh. But it turns out just before he was given the hero's welcome return, not that he's ever set foot here to Britain, he was banging on about how the Zionists are out to get me. So all of this, oh, I didn't mean those things. Those were just the words of an angry young man. I've changed, really. Yeah, for the birds, mate.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see how many people have been defending him, actually. People saying, oh, you know, he's apologised, we've got to take an apology from him. It was some time ago, he was only 34, he's since grown up. And, you know, all the while he was apologising in English, on his Arabic Facebook, he was liking posts suggesting that it was all a Zionist conspiracy and a Zionist plot. People are just so naive. You know, part of our problem is that we are just so terminally naive in this country. Not most people, but our leaders, successive generations of leaders, have just seen British citizenship as something you can hand out for political advantage, not something that has to be earned. I mean, I don't know how you see it, but I see Britain as being like one big national family. And you're welcomed into the family when you play by the rules, fit in, want to contribute, make us all stronger, and certainly don't ask people to burn down our mum's house or our dad's house, number 10 Downing Street. I mean, this guy should just not have... The fact that the government thought that British citizenship was something they're going to hand out to an Egyptian prisoner in order to satisfy a campaign from a bunch of lovies, I think just shows their contempt for what it means to be British, frankly.
Well, no, it's interesting. We're actually going to be discussing exactly that topic with Rakib Ehsan just after the break. What does it mean to be British? With an article saying that a number of people who say Britons must be born in the UK is rising. I mean, look, I must admit, on a basic logical level, I kind of agree with that. You know, I've lived and worked I know it's tedious, I say this all the time, but I have genuinely lived and worked in Ghana, in India, in China, in Kenya. You know, when I was in Kenya for a year, did I magically become a Kenyan? No, I was still a Brit, and then I came back home. And so I do find this idea that there is no such thing as being British. It's like, well, what am I then? Am I stateless? But anyway, but this character, just something I'd like to ask you, Jake. Well, actually, I don't think it's a sensitive subject, but people tiptoe around it as if it is. I did a little social experiment on X earlier, and I basically said, you know, when someone talks about, oh, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm just anti-Zionist, I said, well, why don't you ask them what Mount Zion is then? Right? Because people don't get it. They don't know what it means. They bandy it around. And then follow-up question is then ask them how often Mount Zion is mentioned in the Quran. And I think you're going to be better equipped than I am to just give a little sort of answer to those questions, because I feel people sort of pick up these terms and throw them about like confetti, thinking they're all woke and liberated and enlightened. And it's like, no. You don't get it. So when we talk about Zionism, let's explain to the audience what that actually means.
Sure. Well, I mean, you're absolutely right to say that in the Quran there are verses saying that Allah promised the land of Israel to the Jews. So that is in the Quran. It's just a bit that Muslims don't tend to focus on very much these days. But Zionism is essentially, what it boils down to is the belief that the Jews, like every other people in the world, should have the right of self-determination in their ancestral homeland. There's nothing more to it than that. It's not some genocidal, fascist, colonialist ideology, which is how it's been smeared for political reasons. It's simply the idea that Jews should have the right to self-determination. And by saying that you're an anti-Zionist, what you're saying is that you think that the Jews are the only people in the world who shouldn't have a land, who shouldn't have the right to the place where their ancestors lived, who should just be eternally doomed to wander the face of the earth, never quite being at home wherever they are, even after generations of persecution. And the way that I often think about it is that, you know, it's quite possible to have said before Israel was established that, you know, I don't think it's a good idea. Fine, fair enough. But saying that now, almost 80 years after Israel has been in existence, where you've got generations of people born in Israel, lived there all their lives, have nowhere else to go, to say it should be dismantled is a bit like the difference between saying, you know, I think, shall we have an abortion before the baby's born, and then when the baby's been alive for a few decades saying, let's kill it now. There's a pretty big difference, isn't there?
But also I think that, you know, the reason I talk about Mount Zion is because, look, and this is where maybe it does come down to opinion and one's religious bent. I am a massive Zionist, by the way, because to me, Mount Zion is the holiest place for Jews and also, therefore, in many respects, for Christians in the Abrahamic religions. It's where, you know, essentially the beginning of religion started, the central point of all worship in the Judeo-Christian faith. And, you know, the Jews were there first. It's that simple. They were. It's a fact. It's a historical fact. Then you had the birth of Christianity, and a good 900 years after that, Islam came about. And then all of a sudden, at the points in history, various sort of conquests, people, you know, took over and displaced and all of it. But now you've got the big Al-Aqsa Mosque on Zion. To me, that's a bit like, I don't know, the Christians going over to Mecca and go, see that black rock they've got there, they all worship. Let's build a cathedral on it and call it ours. And so I just think, you know, again, it comes down to religious sensitivities, but a lot of people who bandy this term about just don't even know what the word means. And if they're so sensitive, a lot of these folks, about, oh, you've got to respect people's religions, their faith, their culture, their ancestral homelands, because they'll be like that about everyone else. You know, you throw in front of the woke lot the concept of Aborigines or Native Americans or something like that. My gosh, they'll bang the drum for them. But when it comes to the existence of Israelis and the people of Judea, well, they either don't know what they're talking about or they've got a completely set of rules, completely different set of rules, which to me therefore make them anti-Semites.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the other ironic thing is that all of the values that we have in the West are only really reflected in the Middle East, in Israel, nowhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to Jerusalem, I'm sure lots of viewers and listeners will have been to Jerusalem, and you will know that you talk about Al-Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount, the site of the old Jewish temple, which was the holiest site in Judaism and still is. A mosque was built on there, but Israel, they allow Muslims to retain control of that area. It's not under Israeli control, it's under control of something called the Waqf, which is a Jordanian Muslim organization, in order to maintain the mosque. They haven't sought to boot them off their land and say this is our holiest place. If you go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre just down the road in Jerusalem, you'll see that it's run by Christians. Christians worship there, Easter, Christmas recently, vibrant, fully celebrated there. There's even other religions in Britain as well, particularly in Haifa and elsewhere. People who've run away from Iran, who are minority faiths, the Baha'i, who have nowhere else to go, but Israel's given them somewhere as a refuge in Haifa. So Israel is by far the most pluralist place. If you walk down Tel Aviv beach, you'll see women in hijabs and in long clothes, women in bikinis, Christians, Jewish, Muslims, all mixing together. People don't really get that about Israel. It's the only place like that in the Middle East.
Exactly.
And yet it's the place that we love to hate for some reason in this country.
Yeah, and all of the Christian sites are beautifully protected in Jerusalem. I was blessed to be there earlier on this year, and I got to go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is amazing, the Room of the Last Supper. I mean, it's just, it's incredible. And so moving. And what struck me was, when a Jew might want to go up to Temple Mount, 9 of the 10 entrances are for Muslims only. The one entrance that they might be able to go through is so heavily policed. You're not allowed up there to do anything religious. If they know you're Christian, if you've got any sign of Christianity, you're just not allowed up, full stop. And then the one Christian site at this time of year that people would love to go to, Bethlehem, was the one place then I couldn't visit. Why? Under the Palestinian Authority, controlled not by the Israelis, not by the Jews, not by the Christians, but by this other religion, which popped up much later and now commands the majority of the population of Bethlehem. And it used to be a Christian town until pretty recently. And all of a sudden, very difficult to go there. And they're suffering because they can't get tourism and pilgrims anymore. And so this is, people just need to look at the facts, do their research, and actually go, who plays fair and who doesn't? Because I think the truth has been very much inverted.
Yeah, that's right. Although, I mean, Bethlehem, I've been to Bethlehem. You can go there as a Christian. It's a big Christian site, but perhaps there were security concerns when you were there.
Yeah,
and
it's just reopened, I think.
And when you go there, but you're absolutely right in that you know, as soon as you go into the Palestinian areas, you feel that you're no longer in a liberal democracy. Yeah. It hasn't got that same sense of transparency. You don't have the same sense of comfort or the rule of law and so on and so forth. And of course, Israel's military presence there is uncomfortable. But then, you know what's more uncomfortable? Being blown up by a suicide bomb. And that's why they're there.
I found the military presence very comforting everywhere I was, actually.
Yeah.
But, here we go. Someone else who could be accused somewhat of having inverted the truth is Charlotte Moore. She was the corporation's chief content officer when that documentary Gaza, How to Survive a War Zone was broadcast back in February, which, of course, was controversially narrated by the son of a Hamas official. She very much took the blame for that discredited documentary. And there you go. Obviously, she's now been given an OBE in the New Year's Honours list, because when you look at the Who Got the Gongs this year, it seems to be a celebration of woke.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and she is only, I'm afraid, the tip of the iceberg. There's lots and lots of others. If you go down the list, you'll see a lot of Labour figures, a lot of left-wing figures who've been rewarded even though they failed. It seems to look as if the category for reward, for getting a gong, seems to be failure rather than success. I mean, I think, for example, of John Robbins, the Chief Constable of West Yorkshire Police. He was that guy who caused a scandal by allowing ethnic minority candidate who failed her interview to get a job nonetheless because she's an ethnic minority, and to block white British candidates from recruitment under a drive for diversity. He got a gong as well, and lots of others. I mean, Annalise Dodds, hardly a great success story, became a dame. Tristram Hunt became a knight. Lots of others. But I think that Charlotte Moore from the BBC is perhaps the most eye-catching because she was in charge. She was one of 3 senior BBC staff who took the blame for that Gaza documentary, and it was so egregious. I mean, everyone's focused on the fact that it was narrated by this kid who was from a Hamas family, and no one was told that, and that's so making it into basically a mouthpiece of Hamas propaganda. But I watched it at the time before it was taken off iPlayer, and it was transparently ridiculous. I mean, there was my favourite part was when the narrator was sitting on a cart being trundled along the road, saying how difficult it was to get water, clean water in Gaza. In the background, you could see stalls selling water and stalls selling Coke and snacks and even pet food, well-stocked stalls. And there was also, I mean, later in the programme, there was this little girl who's an Instagram influencer with several million followers in Gaza, and she's a cooking influencer. So it followed her through the stalls in Gaza, all overflowing with produce, into shops, choosing stuff for her next cooking video, and then making recipes and then filming it and sending it off into the world on Instagram. And yet we're asked to believe that there was a famine in Gaza. It was transparently propaganda. And Charlotte Moore was one of the people responsible, and now she's got a gong.
Yeah, it's not so much gongs as a comrades compensation scheme, it seems to me. Jake, it's always lovely catching up with you. I hope you have a really happy new year and that 2026 brings with it plenty of blessings. Right, what are your thoughts on all of that? Let me know. 03444991000 is the number to WhatsApp. 8722 is the number to text. Colin in Doncaster says, my wife had her bag pinched in Bremen, Germany, of all places. All they got was a hairbrush and a packet of tissues. Yeah, what they're going to find in mine is probably a lot of tissues infected with this lurgy I've got. So, there you go, biological weapon. My car keys, which are a bit annoying, but my car is about 100 miles away, so good luck tracking that thing down. And some bits of makeup, really, which are probably also now part of biological warfare, considering this catarrhal thing that seems to have taken root inside my system. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you, yours and everyone watching and listening, says Hev. Anyone can be a citizen of Britain, but to be born here is to be truly British. That makes sense to me, right? Is that racist? You know, when I was living in India, did I suddenly become an Indian? No, I was still British, I'm certain. But we're going to be having that debate just after the break, so don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back, and welcome aboard HMS Common Sense, the one and only brilliant Rakib Ehsan. Hi, how are you doing, Rakib?
I'm doing very well, Alex. How are you?
I'm very well. I think Mama Leslie might be watching, by the way, and you know that you are her #1 favourite human being on earth. I think these days you're higher up the ladder than I am.
Well, that's quite something, isn't it?
It is. You hold a lofty privilege, but she gets excited on a Sunday. She's like, have you got Rakib's newsletter yet? Have you received Rakib's newsletter? So she'll know all about this story and everything you've got to say on it ahead of time, no doubt. So.
Indeed.
let's get on with this. So basically, the number of people who say Britons must be born in the UK is rising. Now, to me, I kind of think if you're going to say you're from a country, not living there, not a citizen of, not working there, that, you know, you either have to have been born there, you would think, or have both parents born there, but then maybe you might yourself have been born abroad and then come back, or have been living there for so long, you've done the citizenship test and said, I want to be of this country, I want to be naturalised. And that, to me, makes you from that country. Anything else is, well, you live here and you're welcome, potentially, perhaps you're not. But it doesn't make you of that country. In the same way that I was saying, you know, I've worked all around the world, but at no point when I was living in Ghana did I suddenly mistake my own, you know, nationality for being Ghanaian. I was a British person living and working in Ghana. So what's going on here?
Well, I think that, Alex, in recent times, what we've seen is the country change a great deal, demographically and culturally. And I think that this new research, looking into matters of national identity, how people frame national identity, some of the findings don't come as any surprise to me. I think that with that massive population change and rapid cultural diversification, I think there's a growing number of people in the white British mainstream who increasingly feel under cultural and demographic threat. And I think that with that, under that environment, it's very difficult to remain open-minded, tolerant, generous, and inclusive. So even though we can still say the mainstream opinion is framing Britishness in terms of good character, shared values, common mutual obligations, we are seeing more ancestral and ethnic framings of national identity grow in popularity, where people are focusing that little bit more on birthplace. But I'd make the point that in terms of birthplace, I'd have to say some of the most anti-British people that I've encountered were actually people who were born and raised in the UK. Now, if you look within the British Muslim population, actually, it's the younger, more educated, British-born Muslims who are more likely to identify with their faith first and foremost compared to their elders, who may have been born in other countries in Asia and Africa, who are fleeing forms of corruption, civil unrest, and indeed conflicts. They had those naturally positive orientations towards British democracy. So it's a very complicated situation when we're talking about national identity in modern Britain.
I mean, this is the thing. You sort of alluded there to ethno-nationalism, which is definitely on the rise, which does concern me, actually, because, you know, let's think about Jeremy Guscott, the rugby player. He's British. He's English. Of course he is. You know, there are plenty of people who are, without doubt, British just because they don't have white skin colour. They don't even need to be a Christian or any particular faith. They were born here. They were raised here. Their lives were built exclusively here. They're from here. But then you do have ethnicity, which is a different question altogether. And yet it seems to me that different rules apply to different people. So, for instance, I used to live in Kenya, as I keep boring people to death with, but there are still parts of Kenya which have significant white populations, areas such as Laikipia or Karen, just outside of Nairobi. And those people are third, fourth generation born in Kenya. They're Kenyans. They are white Kenyans. And yet you would find it, I would imagine you'd find a lot of people on the left wing of politics saying, no, they're colonialists or they're anything but Kenyan, they're invaders. There does seem to be, for want of a better phrase, a two-tier approach to all of this, where a certain set of rules can apply to certain people, but to other people, you know, you're not allowed to identify as something or say that this is what I am, and I feel that. I mean, I looked at my ancestral tree the other day out of curiosity, did a sort of sign-up free 7-week trial just to have a sniff about the place. It was the most dull thing that you could ever see, Rakib. I mean, seriously, I got all the way back to 1530, and it turns out my people had never left the same village. Like, seriously. So I'm like, if I'm not from Gloucestershire, who is? I'm the most Gloucestershire creature on planet Earth.
Well, listen, I'd make this point that, I'll make it clear. For me, England is home. but it quite clearly isn't my ancestral homeland because I am of Bangladeshi Muslim origin. And I think that the point to make here is that for civic nationalists, they should be somewhat concerned by these findings. Actually, because if they want to have a more inclusive framing of national identity, and that is the dominant framing of national identity. And if they don't want to see this rising tide of ethno-nationalist thinking, especially in terms of how to frame national identity, then actually we need to stick to the bread and butter of having rigorously selective and restrictive immigration and asylum system. So if you've seen the 4 years leading up to June 2025, more than 4.8 million migrants arrived in the UK in the form of long-term international immigration. That is astronomical.
Yeah.
And I think that it's something you touched there about two-tierism. I think that much of the time when it comes to two-tier governance, I think that there are perfectly legitimate feelings of injustice within the white British majority, especially when it comes to forms of policing, how various kinds of riots and public disorder, how the police response has been to those events. And I think that when you look at access to public services, social housing, I think that in a way that what we're seeing here is that increasingly that British nationality, that British identity seems to count for very little. And I think that when we have this recent event involving this so-called Egyptian activist, and I think it shows that firstly his links with the UK are very tenuous. So many people are questioning how on earth was he able to acquire British citizenship to begin with. And then when you see the tweets which emerged as well, it doesn't seem like he seems to be of questionable character as well. So I think that we have to have a big debate about what does it mean to be a British citizen, and should it be easy to acquire British citizenship? And I think that those are very important questions as we head into 2026. I think we need to have very serious discussions about it.
But this is the other thing. What I tend to find very often in these debates is it's a small subset of people banging the drum for their own personal belief and speaking on behalf of everybody else. Whether you're talking about the ethno-nationalists, whom I viscerally disagree with in some respects, because I do think you can have the ethnicity of being English, whatever that means, actually, because you could, wind back the clock to the Romans, the Normans, the Angles and the Saxons, the Celts, what is that? But there's a sort of, for the last, let's say, 1,000 odd years, there's been a concept of it. But then the people who tend to push in the other direction and say that all these people are now British, it's like, well, have you asked them? Have you actually asked that person? Because I'm pretty sure if you've got someone from Somalia who's been living over here for 10 years and you said, what are you? I'd imagine they'd say, I'm a Somali, thank you very much.
Well, I think that's the point, that if you have a democratic national community, it is very important to know how people actually feel about living in the UK and how they actually identify as a person, as an individual. And I think that what we have here is a situation where if you want civic nationalism to thrive in the UK, that rests on having some very robust policies when it comes to immigration, asylum, citizenship, and how easy it is for people to be naturalised. And I think that at the moment we're far away from that. And I think also we have to look at how public institutions, how are they coping, how are they managing that rising diversity in our country. So I think that these kind of findings, I do find them alarming, but not entirely surprising, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is every sort of, cause has an effect and things like that. And,
absolutely.
When you watch that commentator, I can't remember who it was now, moaning about the royal family's balcony being really white. I'm like, do you understand how royal family works? Do you get that it's like, people give birth to the successors, and it's unsurprisingly white because for gazillions of years this has been a white country. Of course it's white. Be a bit like me again, going to the King of Ashanti in Ghana going, dude, where are all the Abronis? Of course there's no white people in the Ashanti Kingdom, claiming to be part of the Ghanaian royal family. It's just, there's been too much of a push in the other direction, too much of this attempt to erase everything British as being racist or mawkish or outmoded. You can't cling on to your heritage. That is what creates the racism coming back in the other direction.
No, absolutely. And I think that you even need having some public institutions, including universities, who are looking to erase Anglo-Saxon identity. Without an understanding of that, you simply can't understand how England came about. In terms of the unification of the various kingdoms. So I think that what we need to say, if people feel that their culture, their history, their heritage and traditions are under attack by institutions, mainstream public institutions, then naturally their racial and ancestral identity will increase in salience. And that was how they will increasingly come to see themselves within their society. And I think that's something that we want to avoid. If we want to have a truly cohesive, multi-ethnic, multiracial, multi-faith democracy, then we have to understand that this isn't the way to go about it. We're working directly against that at the moment.
Exactly. Rakib, you always speak so much sense. It's why you're my mum's favourite. Happy New Year, my darling.
Happy New Year. Take care.
You too. Now, it's funny, I was listening to the Today programme, and over the Christmas period, I still listen to it all the time. It's a hard-worn habit by now. But during the Christmas period, they have guest editors. And normally it's the sort of people you'd imagine coming on and banging the drum for their particular woke hobby horse. They had the brilliant historian Tom Holland, whom I happen to adore. Not only did he write one of the most important books on Christianity ever, but he gets history. He knows history. And one of his chosen pieces, I love this, because you can almost see the sweat when you listen to their voices, see the sweat pouring down their foreheads, is he wanted to do a big piece all about this really important Anglo-Saxon king who ruled in the sort of, I think it's the 9th or 10th century, like 900 or something. Can't remember his name because I was half nodding off to sleep and, you know, reading headlines and stuff at the same time. Who is that, sorry, darling, Kieran? Athelstan. There you go. You were listening, weren't you, Kieran? I knew you were a geek. That's why I love you. That's Kieran, who's brilliant, one of my producers. Athelstan, that's right. And it was all a celebration of how Athelstan brought about all of the things that still exist today in terms of our culture, our heritage, you know, the Shire system, all these things. And the argument was made, maybe because he's basically the original big, most famous, important king of England, we should have a bank holiday for him. And they actually went to, there's a minister for bank holidays. There's actually a minister for bank holidays. I'm not kidding you. I wonder how big that man's paycheck is to be asked one question per year. But anyway, they asked him whether there should be a bank holiday, and there's a sort of mealy-mouthed response of, well, you know, if we had to give him a bank holiday, we'd have to give a bank holiday to all these people, and the Scottish and the Welsh and the Irish and blah, 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 blah. And I just loved it. I just saluted Tom Holland and was like, fair play, son. You made them feel really uncomfortable, didn't you? And you made a very important point. So there you go. Always a toast to King Athelstan, King of the Angles. On that note, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I've just been on Google, haven't I? I've been looking up that Athelstan because I was nodding off when I was listening to the Today programme earlier. And I actually made a really weird noise when I saw the word Gloucester attached to him. The sun is in Gloucester! Old Athelstan! So I'm going to go check him out when I go home. I'm going to be like, where are you, boy? Because here's what he did. This is what our Athelstan did. He centralised government. He increased control over the production of charters. He summoned leading figures from distant areas to his councils. That dude basically invented representative democracy. Then he also had all of his meetings were attended by rulers from outside his territory, the Welsh kings, loads of legal texts. He was concerned about widespread robberies and the threat they posed to social order. Bring back Athelstan, I say. He was also known as the most pious king. He founded churches. Basically, this is the absolute boy. He invented United England and even sort of brought in the Scots and the Welsh. Dang, Athelstan's the one. Oh, oh no, he's actually in Malmesbury Abbey in Wiltshire, but he died in Gloucester. Still, I'll go down Malmesbury. That's a nice place, actually, Malmesbury. I'm going to literally get a T-shirt saying "Long live Athelstan" because he seems like an absolute ledge. So there you go. And I do want a bank holiday for him. So hold on. Should we decide when this bank holiday is? Are we having it on the day he died or the day he was born? Which one? Or the coronation, maybe. Let's go for... We don't know the day he was born, so we'll go for the 27th of October. Right, I ain't working. Who's coming to hang out in Malmesbury with me? I thought you'd come. All right, I'll see you there. OK, let's invite Montgomery Toms because he's up next. Hi, Montgomery.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm all right. Sorry, you're probably thinking, what on earth is that noise I've just listened to? I thought I was here to speak about this brilliant documentary I've just made. But you're also welcome to Athelstan Day on the 27th of October in Malmesbury, just to let you know.
I'll be there. I look forward to it.
Can't wait. Now, let's, before we get talking about this, roll a clip and let's see what you have been up to.
In amongst those that will soon be residents of England, I'd say about 200 individuals in Calais right now. These are the undocumented individuals that will come into our country. That's lovely.
I go England, America, Africa, where I want, I go.
No, not where you want you go. This is our country.
My friend, Allahu Akbar.
What was that, sorry?
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Takbir. Takbir.
Muslim invasion, guys.
Takbir.
Oh, man, aren't they lovely? I can't wait for them to be here because they're basically on their way, aren't they, Montgomery? Now, tell me, what inspired you to go and do this? And let's talk about what you saw.
Yeah, so funnily enough, this footage was actually recorded not too recently, a couple months ago, because you tell it's summer and it's a little bit warm out, but it took me a while to get the footage together and get it published. But what inspired me to go was ultimately, you know, we talk about mass migration a lot, specifically illegal and legal, and I wanted to go and see it for myself. So I just decided to go along with a fellow journalist out there, and we spent about 3 to 4 hours in Calais looking around to see what we could find, and we found debris, we found where the boats were being dragged out. We asked the locals there, you know, and they talk very casually about how, there's loads. They just kind of wander around Calais as if it's normal. And then as we were driving back to the ferry, we saw like a legion of 200 illegal migrants being given life jackets and with the police escorting them to Calais, so they can just basically hop on a boat and come over to England. And when we went to go and interact with these people, obviously they were not willing to engage at all. And as I highlight within the long form video that I put on my YouTube, that there were women and children. You can't deny there were, and it's not nice to see, but you're talking a vast minority. I mean, such a small amount. And then as soon as you start to just press a little bit more and say, where are you going and what are you doing? A simple question like that. We had water thrown at us. We were, Allahu Akbar was chanted at us. We were told to go home, which was sort of ironic. And they were just aggressive, masked and uninterested in properly having a conversation. And then as I walked away, I was told to F off, which again, kind of ironic. But what it did for me is it just brought everything you see, on X and in places and whistleblowers and what we even see in our own countries and hotels, etc., like in Epping, actually come into reality and see the other side of it. It transformed my outlook because, of course, I already had strong opinions on illegal migration, but this it gave me an emotional reaction. The position I put myself in there was I had my back to a live railway. And to be honest, at any point, you know, I had about 200 of these guys in front of me. They could have pushed me, they could have attacked me. But emotion kind of took over. And I just saw one thing, and that was my country being essentially invaded by people who, it's very interesting, if you listen to the language, you know, they actually say, the full video, as I say, wasn't played there, but for people that haven't seen it, they actually say, you know, you came to our country for 100 years, so we're going to come to your country for 100 years, and then we'll go. You know, it's less, it's not just, oh, yeah, we're fleeing conflict, even though they've come through roughly 15 countries. Many of them actually come from Germany, because we found documents on the beaches to show that they actually come from Germany. So again, clearly, you know, not exactly war-torn in Germany, is it? But it shows that the motivation to come to England is one of actually almost like a revenge for our history, and they want to come over and essentially colonize us, take over and invade us. And that's the motivation here. It was frightening.
Yeah, there were two things that really stood out. Brilliant piece of journalism, can I just say. Extremely well done, very brave, and critical that people watch that. I was absolutely hooked. And for, you know, for all the wrong reasons in many respects, as in for the same viscerally emotional reasons as you, that I watched it and I was like, this is an invasion. You know, the talk was fighting talk. One of them said, we come to your country 1,000 years. And they were basically saying, you know, the subtext was, we are coming to invade you. That was the language, that was the posture, that was the body language, that was the sentiment, that was the violence. There wasn't just like, please, can you help? We're so grateful. You know, I've been through so much and I can't wait to be in Britain. I can't wait to contribute to society and learn the English language perfectly and, you know, adopt, you know, habits like you do and have a roast dinner on a Sunday. No, it was basically the talk of a marauding invader. The other thing that stuck out to me, and I got my team to do a little bit of research into this, was it seemed in one of the shots there were bags and bags and bags and bags from a particular big sports shop, all filled with these life jackets. Now, that sports shop was Decathlon, and when they were questioned about this previously, they had said, we don't sell, you know, inflatables on demand, and we certainly don't sell life jackets in bulk. And yet, I don't know, there seem to be a lot of people with identical life jackets. So here we go. A spokesman for Decathlon said it had removed inflatable boats from its stores around Calais and Dunkirk in 2021. Bosses took action, claiming at the time that the products were being misused as boats to cross the English Channel. I mean, I think today a lot of those boats are custom made in China, is my understanding, and kept in warehouses in Germany because the Germans aren't allowed to do surveillance ever since the Second World War. But Decathlon has now insisted it wants to keep products that improve safety at sea, such as life jackets, oars and thermal protection. But it says its stores do not sell life jackets in bulk. I mean, I don't know what you saw when it comes to how many life jackets were knocking about.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you've just raised something that I've watched that footage God knows how many times, and I didn't even pick up on that detail. It's very interesting you raised that. I tell you, one thing I did notice when I watched the footage is there's a very small interaction I have with a hooded gentleman. I say gentleman. Hooded man. Smoke. You know, that's my Britishness coming out. With a hooded man who was smoking a cigarette, and I have a very short interaction with him where I say, you know, where are you going? And actually, I've listened to it on loop, and it almost sounds like he's got kind of like a London accent. And he was one of the individuals carrying a bag. So I actually think, you know, I didn't realise myself that I was actually interacting with one of the individuals that was leading and, you know, aiding these people to come to our country. I don't know. You know. In the moment, it's hard to see that straight away. But what was amazing is when I spoke to the police and basically said, you know, what is going on? My French is not good at all, but he spoke, you know, okay English, and all he could say to me was okay. I was like, but they're migrants and they're going to cross illegally to our country. He says, okay. And I was like, no, it's not okay. I was like, you know, we're giving you a lot of money, you know, to stop this from happening. But you're right that it's like there would be more sympathy in my heart if they weren't so aided to make the trip. But it's like life jackets are easily accessible. Police actually help them. It was quite incredible, actually. One thing I didn't catch on video is once they were escorted to the railway station where they were going to get on a train directly to where they were going to be dropped off in Calais, there was a little walkway across the track but they just started walking onto the tracks because they didn't realise that in European countries, one of the things we are supposed to do is not just walk across train tracks. You know, it's little things like that where they just come from a culture and a climate where I can't even imagine how that's going to integrate into Britain at all. I mean, they are in Britain now. These
they'll be here. Yeah,
they are here somewhere. And you know, I wouldn't wish those individuals in any small community across Britain at all.
That lovely little posse with their hoods all up and their like balaclavas and things put over their faces, shouting, Allahu Akbar, we come 1,000 years. Oh, he's over there, isn't he, in the Crown Plaza or something, having fish and chips. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Montgomery, it was a brilliant piece of journalism. Tell our viewers where they can watch it.
You can head over to my YouTube, Montgomery Toms, or you can head over to my Twitter, Montgomery Toms. Yeah, just my name.
Great work, son. And we'll catch up soon. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you. Right,
after the break, it's time for calls and messages. Lots of messages coming through, so I'll be reading those after this. But if you want to join the conversation, it's 0344 499 1000, your normal network rate. Get on the blower. I want to speak to some of you. You can use that number as well to send a WhatsApp message or leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. Get it off your chest like I'm about to do by coughing during the advert break. 87222 is the number to text. Write the word talk before you text, and I'll see you just after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
All right, let's do some messages. God, we're tiptoeing around some sensitive topics today. That's just how I like it. Thin ice, as it's supposed to be during global warming. You don't have to be physically born in the UK to be British. You have to have British parents. For example, if I just happened to be born in China, I'd still be Scottish, well, half Scottish, half English, as my dad was born in London, as was my gran. It's really not complicated, says Elaine in West Lothian. Israel for Jews, how about England for ancestral English? Or don't they deserve a homeland they can call their own? Look, I don't think people are trying to throw us out of our country. Well, not yet. Give them time. Alex, if Kate and Wills had been on a trip to China when she gave birth to George, would we one day say that he is the first Chinese king of England? Says Mark in Yorkshire. See, this is the mad thing. You know, when it gets to what are... There are various different qualifying aspects. There's being a British citizen, and then there's being, let's say, ethnically English, which is different, okay? Very clearly different. And to be a British citizen, it's very clear to me you need to have two British-born parents, or you need to have been born and brought up here, or you've moved here, lived here for so blimmin' long that you've taken the citizenship test and you like a roast dinner on a Sunday. And English or British or Scottish as the next person. It's that easy. Alex, you just made me laugh when you were talking about being very Gloucester. I'm from Bicester in Oxfordshire, and we had people in our hometown when we were kids who needed a road map to get to Oxford, and it's only 12 miles away. They've never been out the town. Mate, you need to go down the Forest of Dean. Then you meet people who have literally never been to the next village. I'm joking. No, really. I love the forest. There's something really nice. I mean, part of me was very bored by making my family tree. The other half of me was like, don't know, that's kind of cool, actually, isn't it? To sort of be able to trace your lineage all the way back 500 years to somewhere that's literally about 5 miles down the road from where you live. I was like, that's actually quite nice. I need to go down that graveyard and sniff around the tombstones and say hi to my people. Let's say hi now to Karen in Peterborough. Hi, Karen.
Hiya, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, my love?
Yeah, good. My sister's one of the ones that's on the New Year's honours list, but she's actually earned it, unlike some of them.
Hey, what does she do? What does she get?
She's in the RAF. She's been in for many years, and she's the second Gulf War. She's a prescribing nurse, so she was treating the civilians in Afghanistan. She was on Kandahar, Camp Bastion. She was on the Ebola flight. They evacuated the nurse out of Africa. She was on the first flight out of China when they were evacuating people with the COVID epidemic. She was on the Afghanistan repatriation. So, you know, the withdrawal of Afghanistan flight. She was on that.
Oh, what's her name?
Laura Gardner. She's done Medivac all around the world. And so she's getting a career service one. And she actually cried when she got it. But the reason was because the first recipient was Florence Nightingale. So to get a recognition as a nurse in the RAF for this is like, it's the ultimate pinnacle. And most people that get it are officers. She's a warrant officer. She's worked her way up from the bottom. So she's not a commissioned officer. So when you hear about all these useless people that have got it for dubious reasons, there are people on the list who have done it for the most brilliant reasons. I'm incredibly proud of her.
Oh my gosh, can we echo that from everybody listening? I think everybody listening right now is saying, Laura Gardner, we salute you. What a remarkable, brave woman. My gosh, you know, and that's what it should be all about. The thing is, you're right, every time we get the New Year's honours list, it's just the celeb names because they make headlines. And what is quite sad is we don't get that often to learn the stories of these brilliant and brave men and women who have worked hard, who are tenacious, who have sacrificed, and who really have contributed to the betterment of people's lives.
Yeah, when my sister was sent out for the second Gulf War, her daughter was 4 months old. And I can remember making the arrangements so she didn't come back. I mean, she really, really has done her whole life in the RAF. You know, she's been out to the Ascension Islands, where she was the only person that could act as a theatre nurse because they didn't have enough people. You know, she's literally spent her whole life working in the RAF. You know, just in service of the country, in service of the people, in service of the civilians, out in Afghanistan and everywhere. And I think so, you know, so when we listen to all the useless ones, there are many people on the list who've absolutely earned it.
How old, if you don't mind me asking, is your sister now and her daughter?
Her daughter's in her 20s now.
Wow.
And my sister's actually, she won't thank me for saying this, but she's actually 48. But she actually marched the cenotaph this year. It was her third march past the cenotaph. She's doing it again next year, but she'll have the badge. You know, she'll actually have a medal, and she's going with her husband and her daughter and her son to go and get it. She's incredibly proud.
Oh gosh, I feel proud on your behalf and on behalf of the nation for her. I'm such a softie when it comes to these things. I've got little tears in the backs of my eyes. She sounds utterly, utterly remarkable. And if ever she wanted to come and sit in the chair over there and just have a talk to us about all the brilliant things she's done, my God, it sounds utterly captivating. And I'd love to see the real backbone of our country, the men and the women like your sister, fully recognised, and let those stories be known, because it's listening to stories like that sometimes inspire people to say, well, if Laura can do it, so can I. You know, it's moments like this that actually act as an inspiration, and you never know what it could be. Something you've seen on television, something you've heard on the radio, something you've read in a newspaper, and you suddenly think, I want to emulate that. That's a real role model. So I just want to say, Karen, thank you so much for phoning up and sharing that story. I hope you've got a really big party planned for Laura. And please, can you convey to Laura a really sincere, heartfelt congratulations, a standing ovation from all the audience of Talk. Anyone listening, stand up right now, wherever you are, raise a toast to Laura, send her your best wishes and all your prayers, and more than anything, a brilliant thank you. Thank you to you, Karen. I'm back after this.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. I really enjoyed that first hour. We got through a lot of gnarly old topics, and then we ended up on something just so beautiful and heartwarming. And I just want to, give my own clap of congratulations to anyone who did actually stand up and raise a glass to the brilliant Laura Gardner. I mean, that was just such a sensational story. When you do live radio and phone-in radio like this, and you get a little corker of a call like that, honestly, it puts a spring in your step. I've got a little smile on my face now. That was just so wonderful to hear. And that's what this country's all about. Those people. Right, keep your thoughts coming in. 0344499 1000. Anyone in your family ever got an OBE or an MBE or something in the honours list, and what for? I like this, actually. Oh, yeah, let's do this as a topic. If you've got someone who's got one of those New Year's gongs in your family or a friend, let us know what they did, because it's always important to, I think that the stories of the, let's say, ordinary men and women, but they're anything but, which is why they have been awarded an honorific. Those are the ones that I want to read about far more than, a rise to Idris Elba. Okay, dude, you're rapping, you've been in The Wire, that was a great series. Luther also pretty tidy, but you didn't do all those medical evacuations out of Afghanistan and people with Ebola and stuff, did you? No. Right, let's speak to someone who may well at some point in the future get a birthday gong. It's James Price, former government special advisor. He already, of course, for those who listen regularly, has a gong from me because he's Babber-in-Chief. All right, James?
It's one of the better titles and not just anybody can win being Babber-in-Chief. We refer, of course, to our joint ancestry from the great county of Gloucestershire, and I'm sorry that the many listeners who are not from that county will not get that gong anytime soon, but do come and join us.
Do you know how far back yours go? Because when I was sniffing around my lot, there were quite a number of prices kept popping up in my tree, so I'm beginning to think if you did yours, we might find that we're meshed.
We'll be sort of third cousins or something, like most people there. I'm afraid I think I might be the first person in 1,000 years to live anywhere east of Stroud or something like that. So we go a long way back, and there's nothing terribly exciting, I'm afraid.
I reckon then you probably are the prices of King Stanley, like my parks of King Stanley. I bet, do you know what, we got to do this. And when you're, down my way, we're going to sit there, have some sort of like mulled cider, sign you up for that 7-day free trial that I just did, and I bet we're interconnected. Oh, have you also got a nubbin on your right foot? I'm joking.
Goodness me. I'll have to look up what that means.
I am joking. Right, okay. Now, let's, if only this was a joke. Our new compatriot, the glorious sounding, where's his name now? Here
Abdel Fattah. I don't think he's from the Gloucestershire Al-Fatahs.
No, I don't think he's from the Gloucestershire Al-Fatahs either. But although there will be some of those in the Barton area for sure. But I love the fact you've memorised his name. Now he's, received the hero's welcome. I mean, it's astonishing, isn't it? That even just 3 days before, can you imagine, right? Can you imagine, I've done something bogey and probably, I don't know, called Keir Starmer a beep. And so the fuzz come, feel up my collar, sling me in prison. I mean, let's be fair, could well happen. And could you imagine my mum phoning up going, yes, I'm from the great lineage of the parks of King Stanley, but, somewhere down the line there was such and such, and, Alex has been put in clink by that Starmer man. Can she become a citizen of your country, yeah? And they're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm coming out of prison, the Prime Minister's saying welcome, the Home Secretary saying welcome, all the celebrities have made this montage video, basically crying as they earnestly repeat the shoddy little so-called poems that I wrote in Clink. I mean, what went on there? 3 days before he comes back, he's there retweeting all this nonsense on social media about Zionists are out to get me. Dude.
It's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? And it is in some ways a gift that keeps on giving, because at every level the state has failed us. Political people in government, in parliament, the civil service, the sort of rancid charity sector that comes up with this stuff, the lefty lovies in celebrity world, exactly as you say. Everybody has not a single person who has bothered to check out this guy. They just say, I'm so virtuous. I'm such a good person. I'm going to help this out. And I'm afraid that some of the non-apologies coming out from some of these people are pretty pathetic, frankly, because I think it really does show the kind of dying spasms of the old order. I think this is now, there is no way that you can try and pretend that we haven't totally debased and devalued citizenship. There's no one listening to this, including the Prime Minister, including this guy himself who said it, who thinks that he is as British as you or I, or as people who were born overseas but have come here to make their life here and tried to integrate and successfully done so, and all the rest of it. This guy is not British in any way. And after about 5 minutes of going, I'm so sorry that I got caught. I'm so sorry to the Jews and the white people and the Americans and the gay people. No, screw it. It's a Zionist conspiracy and they're all out to get me. It's extraordinary.
It's madness. And this is the thing, this sort of madness has become so adopted, so sort of ingested and imbibed by a very sort of narrow, thin layer of wokerati that sort of coats the top of society like a dirty miasma, that we've become really used to this stuff now. And that's the thing, you look at the New Year's honours list and the fantastic story of Laura. I just want to say here, Gaynor in Bristol says, listening about Laura brought tears to my eyes. I think I remember hearing about her sister's involvement in something in the past. But, we're not hearing about the Lauras of this world, because when you look at that New Year's honours list, it is, I'm trying to see if I can find it in the paper here, it is basically the who's who of Wokeville.
Well, it's quite a big industry now. There are various companies that will help lobby on behalf of people to put together the applications that you need. And then there are people inside every government department whose full-time job it is to go around and find worthy people to be given often the sort of lower down OBEs and MBEs and BEMs and these sorts of things. There's a central bit inside the Cabinet Office that then checks these things off. And I know this because I spent a year as the special advisor in the Department for Education. And one of my things that I was responsible for was checking these lists over. And there are various people that you get on there who get put on these lists by civil servants who don't tend to be terribly conservative these days. Of, oh, yes, this person here may have said the country is a terrible beep hole. He may have said, oh, everyone who votes Brexit is evil, or everyone who listens to talkTV is a moron, but we should give him a knighthood or a dukedom or something else. And that happens quite a lot. And yet the same people that go, oh, look at this, conservative-minded person who spent years conserving something they care about. No, can't probably give it to them. They're probably a white person, can't have that, and so on. And those are the sorts of conversations that happen in some of these bits where these decisions end up being made. And that's why you have such a kind of skew in lots of different ways. It's very difficult to get kind of, right-wing people onto these lists. Very easy to get left-wing ones on there.
I'm just going through the list now. Of course, that one from, what's that creepy witch film, that's the musical that's everywhere, and you keep seeing Ariana Grande and that Cynthia Erivo. Yeah, she's got an MBE. What's she been up to? Why's she got that? Or is she just
25 years ago or so? French and Saunders, Dawn French, Jennifer Saunders, they turned down getting OBEs because they said, look, we just have a lot of fun making our TV show. It doesn't feel quite right that we should get it alongside people who've committed their lives to helping people and all the rest of it, which I thought was, maybe a little bit of false modesty, but at least quite a sweet thing to do. And the problem is now, if you see Sir or Dame or something in front of somebody's name, you're now less likely to think, oh, they must have done a lifetime of wonderful service for their fellow Brits and for their country. And you might just think, oh, they're a toady for some reason. The one that's got me is Annalise Dodds, who is the one, I think, Member of Parliament who's been given a damehood this time round. And she's a Labour MP, quelle surprise. She was actually Starmer's first choice as Shadow Chancellor and then got dropped in favour of Rachel Reeves. Oh, what might have been. And so it just looks very transparently as if this is I'm sorry that we dropped you from that role. And then I think she resigned from some other little job she had. I'm sorry, says Keir Starmer, have a damehood, as if that makes it all better again.
Well, it is. It's like I called it earlier, the Comrades compensation scheme. Annalise Dodds was an MEP at the same time as me, and all of my interactions with her are very positive. She's actually a very, very personable and polite woman. I'd give her that much. But there are interesting names on here. I love this one. The world's oldest judo instructor, John Jack Hearn, 102 years old. He's got a British Empire Medal for services to judo. What an absolute son. I love it. There are some beautiful stories in there, and those are the ones that I want to learn about, the sort of normal people who are getting these gongs, because Gabby Logan's got one. I like Gabby Logan. I think she's a brilliant sports presenter and has been in the biz for a long time. But just because you've done a job for a long time, it doesn't necessarily automatically mean you should get an honour for it. Otherwise, also, half the blooming country could get an honour. My dad drove a lorry for most of his adult life. Where's his gong? It's sort of like, I don't really understand that. It's almost, sometimes people seem to get gongs basically because they are famous. And I just think that isn't what it's about. I prefer it when people who aren't famous get the recognition because they've done something truly exceptional, not because they've managed to, get to an exceptional level in their career like Gabby Logan, because most of us are not going to be invited to be able to go and present at the Olympics and, the World Cup and all the rest of it. But because what they've done has gone above and beyond what normal humans ever expect of themselves. And heroism, basically, or super-irrigationism, for those who are fans of philosophical terminology. Have you ever had any gongs in your family?
I can't remember. Well, my old man's got a dinner gong that we bought him for his birthday once, and he bangs when supper's ready. But no, it's a bit loud, to be honest. Hopefully, if he gets himself an OB or something one day, he won't be quite so like this. We did have a case with someone I worked with once, an older gentleman who founded a think tank, a wonderful man, got himself an OBE, and we were trying to tell him what a big deal this was. I think maybe he wanted something a little bit more. And someone who worked for us walked in and said, "Oh, that's great. My mum's got one of those." Oh.
I have a feeling, and hopefully a member of my family is going to message me about this, but I have a feeling my granddad got an OBE or an MBE.
Very.
I think
it's a wonderful system, right? I'm not knocking the system. I think the fact that the word empire, it still manages to be in there for most of these: Order of the British Empire, Command of the British Empire, and so on. The fact that manages to survive and hasn't yet been cancelled in the sort of great awakening that we've had in the last few years is a wonderful anachronism, and Britain is very good at doing that, doing these sorts of keeping these old school traditions alive and all the rest of it, and honouring people who really need to be honoured and all the rest of it. It's quite cool when you go on Wikipedia and you look at some of these great men and women from our history and you see all the kind of post-nominals after their names. You go, I wonder what they got that for, and it hopefully should inspire people to go on and do and try and achieve great things. But as you say, if it's just going to because someone's been on the what is it, BBC Sport or something, it doesn't quite sit so well as when you see these guys who'd won great battles or invented whole new ways of doing science and all these sorts of things.
I do like the fact you're right, actually, that word empire. Anyway, that sort of leads me on to this next concept, which is what makes someone British, because apparently the number of people who believe Britishness is something you were born with has almost doubled in 2 years, according to research that warns of a rising tide of ethno-nationalism. Except I don't think saying you have to be born in Britain to be British makes you ethno-national, because that is different from ethnicity. But also, to me, that's just true, isn't it? Apparently, supporters of Reform UK held the most extreme views, with 71% saying that having British ancestry was prerequisite for someone to be truly British. Of course it blimmin' well is. Like, what?
Well, this is the logical endpoint of when you try and devalue what Britishness actually is, to the point that it's got this Alaa Abdel Fattah chap who has been administratively British. He's been British on paper. He's had a passport for all of 5 minutes, and he got given it because his grandmother gave birth to his mother whilst she was studying here. And he himself admits he's not British and has done that in many of his fouler tweets.
He doesn't even like us.
No, it doesn't care anything about it at all, doesn't understand any of it. So when you get the government having to defend this decision, which the Foreign Office official statement started by saying, he is a British citizen, therefore we have to help him, only because you gave the guy a passport. When you devalue citizenship like this, it's no surprise that some people start to have a reaction. And many of us have warned against this happening, because we said to people, if you keep pushing this stuff, if you let in millions and millions and millions of people, as we've done in the last few years alone, to the point, what is it now, like 1 in every 60 people in the country has arrived in the last 18 months, 2 years, something like that. It's some simply eye-watering numbers. Of course, you're going to have a backlash when those people bring different ways of living, and I would say inferior ways of living and inferior ideas, and don't treat women as well, and don't treat gay people, don't treat their neighbours as well, and all these sorts of things. I don't want us to be having a conversation about race or ethnicity. All the academic research says that if you have multi-ethnic societies, then the thing to do is to downplay any of those differences. But what have we done? We've put them up. And one of the morons who got given a knighthood was the guy that ran, is it West Yorkshire Police, who said, I want to discriminate against white people. And he gets a knighthood for it.
This is the thing. Himself, as a white person, it's like, not with you, though. Do you want to quit your own job, mate? In solidarity? You know, that's what they do. They get to the top and then they pull up the ladder behind him.
That's exactly right.
Now, you'll be pleased to know, I love the foreign aid stories. I haven't had one of these for a while, because we've we stopped giving foreign aid to nonsense projects, because instead we use a lot of it to put people in hotels, which in many respects is even more of a nonsense. But I do quite like that when you suddenly realise that, you know, all this hard-earned cash from the British taxpayer is being used for ridiculous things. At least this time it isn't actually the private jet of a dictator. No, it's a pleasure-oriented sex chatbot for Kenyan teenagers. Apparently, this app came from a £41 million UK aid programme. And apparently it's designed to encourage safe sex in Kenya. Now, I lived in Kenya, right? I lived in Kenya. And let me say, this is a country of staggering differences. Like, I can tell you right now that almost any teenager in Nairobi will know how to have safe sex. Whether they choose to or not is a different matter. They're going to know that. In many respects, Nairobi these days feels more developed than half of the United Kingdom. But then you can go up to, like, the Samburu region or something, and or down to the Masai Mara. And the idea that these people are going to use a chatbot is mental. They don't even have smartphones. Do you know what I mean? They're like, you know, wearing those spacer hoop earrings and all the sort of necklace, you know, the sort of neck expanding neckwear. And, you know, they really sitting there going, yeah, chatbot, woo, that's better. So this is just a nonsense. But also, I can tell you one thing. From living in Kenya. Now, I don't know anything about this and I've not asked them, you know, how clean the flow of money has been. But one of the most popular words among people in Kenya is the word chicken. Because chicken means a backhander. Chicken is where you're, you know, someone is sort of like, oh, you know, you get the government contract to build this road. Where's the chicken? Do you know what I mean? I'm going to give it to you. You get the sort of £30 million. And I'm expecting like, you know, £1 million back to say thank you. And so just all of these things are just a nonsense. But I just cannot see in any way, shape or form how spending money on a sex chatbot in Kenya is a good use of British taxpayers' hard-earned cash money.
Right. I think this is. I'm sure there is an argument that in a small way this would help if someone wanted to go and fund it. Why on earth it has to be British taxpayers thousands and thousands of miles away? Let me just remind everybody. We're going into a new year and a new financial year and all these things. We are about £3 trillion in debt. £1 trillion. Right, I can't explain to you how many zeros are in a trillion. £3 trillion. And when you actually look at the unfunded liabilities for pensions, for both the public sector pension and the state pension, that rises to something like £12 trillion. And we're borrowing more money, thanks Rachel Reeves, borrowing more money every year. And so that money we're using to spend on just servicing the debt that we've got. And so the amount of debt that we have, because we're borrowing that, gets bigger and bigger. And now we spend about twice as much or something on servicing that debt as we spend on our defence. It's extraordinary. And yet some, I won't say the word because it's a lovely family programme, person has decided, as you say, Alex, that what we need to do is keep taxing people at the highest burden they've got since the Second World War to spend money on stupid wastes of money like this. Absolutely extraordinary. There's nothing moral about it.
But also, I always find that these applications of aid themselves are somewhat racist. And when I say racist, it's because it sort of still regards the vast majority of African countries as being sort of hand-to-mouth, uncivilised, living up trees, give them a fishing rod and they might be able to catch some fish. You know, I lived in Kenya. I'll tell you what, mate. Great champagne bars, some of the best sushi I've ever had. Amazing nightclubs. It's very woke as well in Nairobi, super woke. There was this brilliant music festival where you could have loads of wine. It was called Blankets and Wine. You know, you went along, big live stage. In fact, when I was in Nairobi, I went to see, I think, what was it I went to see? I went to see Blackstreet. Do you remember? No Diggity. They were performing live there.
Yeah.
As was, I think, Tiny Temper was performing. It is not, I repeat, Kenya does not need the white saviour complex. It could do this itself. There are plenty of highly intelligent Kenyans who they were the first people to develop a mobile phone payment system. That came from Kenya. It's called M-Pesa. They invented that, being able to pay for something with your mobile phone. They don't need our help to give them sex chatbots. There's money that could be better off spent making sure that our homeless people and veterans weren't in the cold this winter. James.
Absolutely right.
Thank you ever so much, my love. Always great to have you on the programme. In chief, there he is. Let's do a couple of messages before I go to break. Sarah says, I'm British born and white and don't mind being kicked out of the UK. I'll claim asylum as somewhere where everybody is respected and valued. We still respect and value you, Sarah. Hi, Alex. I'm a Brit and I can trace my ancestry to the 1500s, all in the UK. Right, you're British. My wife is from Ukraine, right? So she's Ukrainian. My daughter was born in Switzerland, where we live. So what nationality is my daughter? Well, I'm assuming if she was born in Switzerland, lives in Switzerland, you haven't told me how long for or her age, but I assume that probably makes her by passport and nationality Swiss, but of British origin or mixed origin, right? If she's about 2 weeks old and you're planning to bring her back over here, she'll probably scrape through with being British. Don't you worry about that. These things are quite easy to figure out, I think. Oi, Alex, says Rich from Whitecroft. You leave us foresters alone, old bat. We've heard of Gloucester. Never been there. Apparently there's lots of people and stuff. Oh, you better believe it, my friend. We've got electricity and everything. Hi, Alex. Would you mind sharing the name of the Tom Holland book you mentioned? Hope you had a lovely Christmas and enjoy a wonderful New Year. Yes, it's called Dominion. It is a brilliant book. It is all about how the values of Christianity and the spread of Christianity basically made the entire world a better place. But it's factually done. Dearest Alex. Oh, I thank you, dearest Hayley in Surrey. Love watching your shows. Your guest Montgomery, along with Isabel's interview with the man who was undercover with the illegal immigrants. Why doesn't our useless Prime Minister et al. Watch and learn? He will see that all these intruders who he is so keen to invite in and give them whatever they could wish for and more, they're all totally taking the mickey and are not at all grateful anyway. Look, come on, this is the Prime Minister briefed to the highest level. He knows. He knows, they all know. Right, we're going to take a short break now, and here we go, quite aptly. We're going to be joined by former Met Police Detective Mike Neville to, amongst other things, discuss London's shoplifting epidemic on the day I just got my handbag snatched. That's coming up after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and welcome back to the show. Oh, getting so many good messages. I can't wait to get my teeth stuck into those. Oh, good. The next section, we're going to have some callers and some texts. So if you want to join the conversation, it's 03444 99 1000 on WhatsApp. You can also leave me a voice note. 87222 is the one to text. Write the word talk before you text. You can also give me a call. 03444 99 1000. Kieran is ready to take your call and make sure you're not too far gone. You haven't had too many Christmas sharers that we can actually put you on air. Okay, one person I know we can put on air. He's as dependable as your favourite pair of socks is Mr. Mike Neville, former Met Police Detective. Hi, Mike.
Sorry to hear about your handbag being stolen. I hope they get the CCTV. If they do, let me have it, and I'll see if I can make some identifications. Is it?
Do you know what? I've been on it, Mr. London number, so that could well be the shop calling me. Annoyingly, the adverts aren't long enough to follow back. I'll tell you what it was, Mike. I've just got so used to living in a high trust society again. Now I've moved back out to Gloucestershire. In the town centre I go to, you can just forget your stuff anywhere and it'll be there. And I was trying on a coat, my Christmas birthday present from all my family, and I was putting it on, making sure it fit okay before purchasing it. And there I was. And obviously, because I'm putting on a coat, the handbag's not over my shoulder. And I look round and I'm like, oh, it ain't here anymore. And then I was like, oh, yeah, now I remember. I'm in London. But yeah, I'll hold you to that, actually, if they do have it, because they've given me a call, so perhaps they do have evidence, or perhaps they found the bag. Who knows?
Yeah, good.
Anyway, let's like, it wasn't a big drama. There wasn't really much in it, to be honest. So Yabu sucks, whoever tried to pinch it thinking it was their lottery win. Here's a story for you. This is sort of squidged out quite recently, actually. Quite frightening. An Afghan man has attacked hospital staff, allegedly attacked hospital staff, with a weapon after being denied an appointment. Officers were called to Newton Community Hospital in Newton Le Willows in Merseyside at midday on Tuesday. Following reports, a man had attacked several people. The weapon may have been a crowbar, according to Merseyside police. The man was believed to have attended the hospital to request an appointment, but became increasingly agitated when his request was declined and he was asked to leave. He then was reported to have damaged a counter before assaulting people inside the building. The 20-year-old man, originally from Afghanistan, was arrested on suspicion of a Section 18 wounding, affray and criminal damage. The victims of the assault were being treated at hospital. None of the injuries are believed to be life-threatening. It all sounds like, reading the witness statements and stuff, an absolute hullabaloo. A guy over the road in a shop said a woman bleeding from the head came in, asked him to call the police. 10 or 15 police cars arrived. That word Afghan seems to pop up a lot, doesn't it? And I think what we got to remember is whether, you know, I think Afghans are not a particular type of people, but when you've got people coming from traumatic war zones, they're potentially not the most calm, let's say.
Well, it's not only that. We know that statistics have shown that Afghans are 20 times more likely than the British people to commit sex offences. And so these attacks, and I've no doubt there's a lot of women involved in this, you know, being a health centre. You know, my wife and my eldest daughter are both nurses, and they don't go to work to be assaulted. And what we see, though, I think here, and we know it like places like Crowborough now, Epping down in Essex, it's not just the inner cities. And at times past, it was just inner cities who had these lots of migrants and lots of crime as a result. And it was very easy to point the finger at, say, the Met Police or the Manchester Police, Birmingham Police, say, oh, they're racist, they're picking on all these people. Now I think everybody's having a little taste of it in the Crowboroughs and Eppings and then Newton Le Willows, and it isn't a nice taste. It's a horrible thing. There are too many people being let into this country who refuse to live up to our standards of good behaviour, of treating women and girls with respect, of not committing violent acts. And who should really be grateful for being here, to be here, to have the safety of this nation and the NHS to treat them, and then this is the payment we get. And we've got to stop doing this. We are putting people at risk. It's outrageous. And I think because of Talk, it's been Talk and other stations like it, we're able at least to discuss it without being called racist. Very, very true. And, you know, I was trying to have this conversation with someone the other day on air saying that, look, if you're born and brought up in a country where the attitude towards women is, well, you know, if she's out there living her best life, hasn't got a headscarf on, you can just do what you like, it's her own fault, snatch her up. Or if you come from a country where settling score is done with violence, and that's how you've been brought up, you know, you're in your 20s and all you've seen all your life is, oh, right, grab that woman, boff him over the head. Do they think that suddenly these people are going to arrive, you know, underneath the white cliffs of Dover and have some sort of mesmeric, complete frontal lobotomy transplant and suddenly find themselves be part of, you know, the landed gentry about to go out on a hunt with a bugle? Of course not. You know, people don't radically change. When you've been brought up somewhere with the values of that country, it takes a heck of a lot of time to shake that stuff off, whether you can shake it off at all. And well, Alex, let me tell you this. My brother served in Afghanistan, and the compensation, if a young man was killed, the compensation was £5,000. If a girl was killed, the compensation was £500. So they can see the value of men is put at 10 times more than of women. That just sums up the attitude, and we cannot have all these people come into this nation with those attitudes in vast numbers. If we had one or two who would then have to fit into the whole society, we might survive. But when they can go in groups together and form these little enclaves of their own culture, It just doesn't work, and that's what's happened across the nation.
No, it has. And so this is what I mean. The staggering thing about this story is a police chief, Katie Bourne, who's Sussex's Police and Crime Commissioner, says that asylum seekers should be tagged. Of course they should. I mean, I don't, let alone tag. That's a lot of money and a waste tagging them. Just don't let them out the blimmin' hotel. Oh, well, that denies them freedom and I'm sorry, but you're seeking asylum. You're not coming over here to have a jolly and, treat it like some sort of island of Butlins. We don't know who these people are. We don't know what backgrounds they have. We don't know if they're fleeing crimes. We don't know how safe they are. The fact that we just go, come on in, wander about, get to know the place is madness.
It is madness. And of course, she is the Police and Crime Commissioner in Sussex. And the reason for this, of course, two reasons. Firstly, she's the national lead on shoplifting. She's seen the impact you can have with tags. In the fact you can track people and you can stop them going to certain places where they often steal. And secondly, she obviously covers the area of Crowborough, where this military camp, which I've stayed on myself, has been taken over, and they're going to have over 500 young, undocumented men who suddenly will be able to go to this little nice Sussex town of Crowborough and do as they will. And that isn't good enough. We should be able to track them. If you come to this country and say, help, I'm fleeing asylum. Of course, I'm leaving my wife and daughters and mother behind to face the warfare, but as a young man, I've run off. If that's the case, if you're that scared and you've come here and we give you a warm bed and nice food, then you should accept that this is what we're going to do. We're going to put this tag on you because we don't know who you are, and you're going to live with it. But of course, you've got these idiotic organisations. I see one quoted in there, which is the Refugees and Migrant Forum for Essex and London, banging on about this being cruel and torturous and against their human rights. What a load of nonsense. As I say, if I was in a situation where me and my family had to flee to another nation and the other nation said, there's some accommodation, here's some food, however, you've got to wear this tag so we know where you are, so when your before your claim comes up, we can track you. I would say thank you for welcoming me. Of course, I'll wear whatever you want me to, because I'm very grateful for all you've done for me.
No, exactly. If you're genuinely fleeing torture, persecution and war, you're happy just to not be there anymore. I think this is utterly shocking. I mean, bad things are going to happen in Crowborough. Of course they are. It is an inevitable. It breaks my heart when I see the amount of crimes, particularly sex crimes, taking place in Bournemouth. Let's talk now about shoplifting. It soared by 12% in a year. I mean, this is what we know. This is what we know about. It's saying that the capital's retailers have reported £16.7 million worth of shoplifting every single month. It just goes up and up and up. And we've discussed this before, haven't we? There's people who go about just on the nick because they can. They know they'll get away with it. I mean, people said, are you going to report that to the police about my handbag? And my first answer was, no. Why would I do that? Not, because I've got some sort of great compassion to whoever may or may not have pinched my bag, but because, when I've reported to the police when someone tried to mug me for my phone, they did nothing. When I reported to the police, I had a video, right, provided by the pub CCTV of the exact moment an Uber driver came, tried to do a three-point turn in my street, smashed into the side of my car so much it caused £1,000 worth of damage, came, looked, went, oh yeah, messed up that car, didn't I? Checked their own car, drove off. I had the CCTV. I literally had it to give to the police. And I got a letter, hand signed, saying, we don't do this anymore. So, I mean, me going like, oh, yeah, someone picked up my handbag when I was in a shop. Don't worry, there wasn't really anything that much important in there that can't be replaced. I can't imagine the boys in blue turning up and going, well, we better bust this crime. I mean, it's sad that we've got to this level.
Absolutely. I mean, what the Met are saying is that there were 99,000 shopliftings reported, but what you've got to imagine, Alex, we've discussed this before, that the only time shops report a shoplifting is A, if somebody's been detained and they want something done about it, or B, the property stolen is such a high value thing that they've got to claim it on their insurance and they can't take the hit. So if people are coming in nicking 50, 100 quid's worth of, 150 quid's worth of goods, the shops are just taking it on the chin and thinking, why am I bothering reporting it? And then you have the cheek of the Commissioner, Mark Rowley, saying, oh, shops need to help us more and have CCTV. Well, the vast majority have CCTV. What the police don't use is they don't use it effectively. You've got all these CCTV cameras, millions across London. They're all recording people stealing. And what they can do, of course, I had a case where we matched a suspect to 43 different thefts. So, of course, he went to jail. But we did that with human super econisers, matching images which are on a database. The police do not use images in this effective way like they do fingerprints and DNA. And this is a problem. And the Home Office as well don't measure it. So the Home Office don't measure it, so the police don't do it. And added to all that, of course, if you get caught for just one offence, you go to court and you'll get a 10-bob fine or a warning. And so there's no real consequence to you doing these things. So until the police start to use CCTV effectively and the courts start to bang people up, people will continue doing this because it's easy and there's no risk.
It's too easy. It's too easy. You're absolutely right. Mike, I'm hoping that you manage to get a government, whether this one or a future one, to actually follow your approach because it is so overdue and much needed. The brilliant Mike Neville. Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year to you. OK, let's do a couple of messages. After the break, I want to take some of your calls. Alex, I used to work with Rick Stanton, who was awarded an MBE and a George Medal for his cave rescues, mainly his role in the Thai cave rescues. Oh my God, have you ever seen that programme about the Thai cave rescues? Blimmin' amazing. Amazing. I mean, I remember being glued to that news story when it happened, but when I went back and watched the film, they had to basically use some sort of anaesthetic to make the boys go to sleep. And then, you know, go through all these perilous routes to get to where they were. The football coach, you looked after them the whole time. And then they strap the boys to their backs and swim them to safety. Oh, my God, I'm thinking about that. And again, little old tearful Alex, little tears coming into my eyes. That's what I'm talking about. Those are the honours I want to know about. I love when I hear stories of that. Jill says, sadly, I don't really know Gloucestershire. Sad indeed. However, both my birth parents were from there, but I was adopted to a family in Lancashire. Every time I listen to you talk about home, I rather wish I'd grown up in Gloucestershire instead. Well, it depends which bit of Gloucestershire, my friend. Like most counties, it's got the good bits and the bad bits, but by and large, it is the best county. I would say that, wouldn't I? OK, we're going to take a short break now. It'd be great to get some of your calls. 03444991000 is the number to dial. It's your normal network rate. That's coming up after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back. Oh, the plot thickens. The shop where my bag was snatched from has just left me a voicemail telling me to call them and they'll explain what has happened. Ooh. Interesting. Although I can't do it right now because I'm on air. And then I think by the time I have my longer advert break, they'll be closed. So that one is going to have to wait until tomorrow. Suspense. But we do instead have Cornelius from Liverpool, who probably doesn't know where my bag is, but he's on the phone to talk about other things. Hi, Cornelius. Oh, where's Cornelius? Oh, he's dropped off. Cornelius, call back, my man. We really wanted to speak to you, whether you knew about my bag or not. Let's do some messages instead, shall we? Joanna in Salisbury says, hi, Alex, you can't tag migrants. The police would have to work and the food delivery companies would probably close down. I mean, you make a fair point. I also think tagging migrants is, I mean, when do you think, how many tens of thousands are there? There's actually then you've got to have all the staff to monitor where they're going and bring it all together and coordinate it in some sort of giant migrant movement, Cape Canaveral. That seems crazy. How about when you put them in these barracks, which have got natural perimeter fences, which are really high with chicken wire and stuff, plenty of open space because, you know, when cadets go and do training and stuff, they're not just sitting on bunk beds all day. No, they're out stretching their limbs, doing, I don't know what they get up to, press-ups and running about the place. And they've got open space there. They've got a mess. They've probably got, you know, things to play with, snooker tables, I don't know. But why don't we just say, here you go, you live in this particular camp, if you will, but you can't leave it. Or you have a security man who basically says, right, listen, mate, why do you need to leave the premises? Well, I've got to leave the premises because I'm going to go to the doctor because my eyeball has fallen out. Well, fair play, off you go. But if you're not back in like 2 hours, we're going to come and get you arrested. Or do you know what I mean? Like, it really isn't that difficult to figure out how to make sure that people aren't roaming the streets doing bad things when we don't know who they are. And of course, unfortunately, there will be genuine refugees, families who are, you know, caught up in all of this. But what I would say is this, you know, perhaps if you are a woman with a child, you might get a special dispensation. You know, if you're a young 20-year-old who seems to walk around with his hood pulled up so you can't see his face, swaggering about and keeps a knife under your pillow, no, you can't leave the barracks. If you happen to be a woman and a young baby, then you might say you get to have a different set of rules applied to you. And maybe you can go to a playground down the road, or in fact, we won't put you in army barracks, we'll put you with other women with babies over here in a completely different set of circumstances. I mean, it's just really not that difficult. Is it? Is it that difficult? Oh, let's speak now to the brilliant Georgina, who's in London. Hi, Georgina.
Hello, my darling. Lovely to talk to you. Now, I'm going to have a bit of a rant, Alex, because Britishness is something that I hold very close and dear to my heart. Britishness is not something that is instantly inherent just because immigrant parents happen to have a child here while they're awaiting a verdict whether they can stay here or not. Britishness is when your parents, your grandparents, great-grandparents have been born and raised here. Britishness are those who are here at the very beginning, Alex, and they help with the building of great cities that have been built here, and their ancestors are still here. Those who have fought and died in our country, those who have broke their backs for generations to make sure we had food on our plates, milk in our tea, fish on a Friday. Britishness are those who take pride in Britannia and are not afraid to fly our flag high and proud without hesitation. Not those who
okay,
here.
I hear you, Georgina, but I got a question. For you, okay?
Go on.
My brother's wife, born and bred in Eastbourne, was a school teacher, now a very successful piano teacher, runs an entire company of teaching lots of kids and adults piano. Her parents were both born and raised in what was once known as Rhodesia. They are from Zimbabwe.
British,
they are from. They've got Zim accents. They're white Zimbabweans, if you will, but you know they fled Zimbabwe back when it got a bit tasty. Both top. Her mum is orthopedics, and her dad to this day is still a very much celebrated anaesthetist. But she and her sisters were born and raised here. A big part of the worship team at the local church. Very much has a sort of South Coast accent. Is she not British because her parents weren't born here?
No, absolutely not. I'm sorry. Listen,
but she's British, Georgina. She is British.
Maybe she's British, but her parents were not. Her parents have come over.
Well, no, but the thing is, her parents would say they're originally from Zimbabwe. I mean, they're UK citizens, but they would probably identify as being Zimbabwean.
But they were born in the United Kingdom.
I believe they might have been born in Zimbabwe. I don't know. I'd have to go back. But this is the problem. When you start getting to all of this, the idea in my head that my brother's wife, who's the most British person I can think of, isn't British, but when she was actually born here and brought up here, Alex, just because her parents were originally from Zimbabwe, to me is a madness. Of course she's blimmin' British.
Darling, we have got to have strict rules. Who is British and who isn't? Because if you start changing the goalposts on this, we're never going to come.
I'm not changing the goalposts. I'm saying that my brother's wife was born and raised and has lived her whole life in the United Kingdom. She don't know any different. She's British.
Well, her parents are not British.
I didn't say they were. That's what I'm saying to you, because you were saying for someone to be British, their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents to the very beginning all have to be. And I'm saying I don't agree with that.
Well, darling, listen, the whole point of debate is that adults can discuss these things and they don't have to agree. That's what debating is all about. I'm giving you my opinion, how I feel about my opinion. It's not necessarily
Okay, so let's go back to this. If my brother's wife isn't British,
yes,
but she has never been to Zimbabwe in her life, what is she?
Well, was she born in England?
Yes, that's what I said. She's never known anywhere else. She's born and bred here. Her parents just happened to, when they were young doctors, flee Zimbabwe because, I don't know, they were slaughtering white people. So they came over here and have set up their lives working in medicine their whole time and had all their children here.
I understand that, my darling, but the fact is her mother and father were first-generation immigrants. She is a second-generation immigrant, whichever way you look at it.
So what is she? So is she British or is she not? Because
I would say,
to me, it'd be a stretch to suggest she's Zimbabwean.
Yeah, well, she was born in England. She was born here. So she will have UK citizenship, but her mum and dad didn't. They were from Rhodesia.
Yes, and they would happily say that. So we can say that her parents are Rhodesian or Zimbabwean. I don't actually know if they were born and bred in what was once called Rhodesia. I'd have to know that. Yes. But this is what I mean. You know, is it not quite clear, right? And this is why I think we can probably reach some sort of agreement that my brother's wife is British. Born, bred, raised here. Never known any different. Her parents are arguably Zimbabwean.
Yes.
Can that exist?
See, I would still say that her parents came over as immigrants and she was born here, granted.
Yeah.
But her parents are Rhodesian, she is Rhodesian. It's like with the Jewish fraternity. If your mother is Jewish, you are Jewish. You know, if you're born on an island, it makes you an islander. Your brother's wife was born here. She's an islander. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's totally British. Even
technically, her parents are probably British because it was the British who went over to Zimbabwe.
Right, well, if they are British, then she is British. If they are British, if they were born in Britain and they fled for whatever reason from Britain, then they are British, she is British. But I'm sorry, darling, I've got to be strict on my rule. If her parents are Rhodesian, even white Rhodesian, if that makes any difference, I don't think it does.
Well, they are white Rhodesian, yeah. But she was born here with all her sisters. She's literally never lived anywhere else. She's got a southeast accent.
Listen, but you've got to think, Alex, that we've got immigrants coming over here, right? And they have a child here. Now, if immigrants come over here, as I said when I first started talking to you, a man and a woman, the woman's pregnant, she has a child here. Does that automatically mean that that child is British?
Look, I think if you're born and bred in a country and don't know any other country, then you probably are. Georgine, I've got to go to break, my darling. It's always great to speak to you. Anyway, got to whiz to that break pretty quickly because we won't have much time for the sport otherwise. And back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back. I'm joined by the very British Mike Anstead, Sports Head of Content at The Sun. Great to have you here. I'm just assuming things about you, but you seem very British to me, Mike. Now,
certainly.
Talk to me about the English Premier League.
Yeah, English Premier League. So we are back tonight. 6 games tonight, massive night. But the biggest one is at Arsenal playing Aston Villa. So this is a huge title clash. So if Villa win this, and they've won 12 games in a row, they'll go joint top. If they win by 7 goals tonight, which I'm not saying that's going to happen, but they would go top. So they haven't won the title since 1981. So it's a massive game. But what's interesting is Declan Rice looks like he's going to miss this game. We'll find out soon when they name the teams. But he's got a knee injury after playing right back against Brighton. So Arsenal getting hampered again by injury. So they're up against it. So it's a massive test for the Gunners tonight. Let's see how that one unfolds.
Well, there we go. Now, Spurs have agreed to sell some character called Brennan Johnson to Crystal Palace. £35 million? Wow.
I know we're not even into January just yet, but the transfer window's definitely action's happening already. So Brennan Johnson scored the winner for Spurs in the Europa League final just 6 months ago. He's getting binned off already, so he's got to still agree the move, but it's probably likely that will go through. He's decided, right, let's go and move over to Crystal Palace, who need reinforcements. So Spurs aren't messing around. They're getting a lot of business done before we're even into January. Thomas Frank is under a bit of pressure there and goes back to Brentford, his old team, in a couple of days, making his move.
Do you want to know how rubbish my football knowledge is?
Go on.
The other day, one of you sporty types was in here. When they talk about Brentford, I thought they'd invented it. I was like, that's a made-up team,
Oh,
isn't
wow.
it?
Okay, yeah. Well, they were a small team for quite a number of years, but they're quite established now. So, yeah. Don't say that around Kew Bridge. You'll get in trouble.
The only football I can name is David Beckham. Right, now, on to slightly more comfortable territory, which is darts. I saw this earlier. Luke Littler was booed during his win over Rob Cross. Ali Pally.
Yep.
Why were they booing?
Well, it's a good question. So there were a group of German fans who were giving him a bit of stick, which isn't uncommon sometimes when, the Premier League's played overseas and stuff like that. So he was getting a bit of stick from German fans. Then on stage after his win against Rob Cross, tells them that, hold on, you're just paying for my tickets, etc. You're paying for my prize money. That got a few more boos. So it'll be interesting when he comes back on New Year's Day. He's playing against Krzysztof Ratajski, who's a guy from Poland, won today. So he's got a big quarter-final. What's interesting as well, Littler's mum has waded into it today, calling fans vile. There was another word she said after that, but I'm not going to repeat it on the radio. But she called them vile. So his mum's getting upset about it. Luke's upset about it. Can they all keep their cool? And he goes and wins it in a couple of days' time. Let's find out.
Well, he's actually been interviewed by TalkSport's Mark Wilson about the booing. Let's have a listen.
What I said, obviously the fans booing and whistling. I just said to them, "You pay for our prize money, thank you." So there's no point whistling and booing because us players, we're always a winner. But yeah, hopefully it's different New Year's Day. So after the first set, there was a bit of whistling and booing. So I've took the first set and I've given it to the fans. And then Rob won the second set. He wasn't getting any stick, and then he's done the same as what I done. But yeah, it goes to show he was trying to do something because the fans were definitely on his side tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah, just had to block it out and get the job done.
I must admit, his reaction might not have been particularly edifying, but he's a young kid. Why are you booing him? I just think it's so unpleasant to boo people
I'm not sure
in
why he's
sport.
really getting booed. I mean, look, he backs himself, he's confident. I wouldn't say he's over cocky or over arrogant. He's achieved a lot in the last couple of years. Like you say, he's still young. He's on there. He's taken darts to a whole new level. So, look, every top star, man or woman down the years, has got a bit of stick when they get to the top. That's life, right?
Yeah.
You're there to be shot at. But it feels like it went a bit too far last night. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on New Year's Day when he's back out.
There you go. Thank you ever so much, Mike. Great to have you in the studio. Happy New Year to you. We're taking a short break now. You don't get to go anywhere, though. I want to hear your thoughts on everything we've been talking about. 0344 499 1000 is still the number to call, and for WhatsApp, 87222 to send a message. Right, talk before you message. I'm back for the last hour just after this.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And Those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometers have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies. Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back to the show. 2 hours under our belts. Yep, we're having to stretch it out with our big fat Christmas pants. One more to go. I've been having a really good time the last 2 hours. I've been enjoying your company. And this whole conversation about who's British and who isn't is absolutely lighting up the message boards. So let's get through some of those messages, shall we? You can't blame migrants for the way they are having a better standing of living than a lot of Brits. It's those lefties you have on. Those are the people you need to tell because they want to change the face of Britain, says Derek. Well, I know. I mean, it is. I do actually blame this. What do I call it? The thin film of leftism that seems to be strangling our nation, all these people making dreadful decisions. And then Brian in Durham's now asking about my sister-in-law's parents. Are they not Rhodesian? Asks Brian in Durham. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask them. And then someone else says, Alex, your sister-in-law is British. End of. Well, exactly. Actually, Alex, I think she should have dual nationality and choose for herself. No, she's just British. I can assure you. I don't think just because her parents were born, or I don't even know if they were born there, but lived in Rhodesia, as it was once known, and then came over to Britain to have their children. All of a sudden it's like, oh, do you want to be from Zimbabwe now? She's British. Anyway, I've come up with a really good idea, right? Now, I've never seen Harry Potter, but my understanding is they've got a sorting hat to decide which house you go into. So what I was thinking is we could have a bowler hat, a Tam O'Shanter, and here we go, a Het Gymraeg, and just literally line people up and stick it on their heads and be like, oh, that Tamo fits, off you go, North of Hadrian's Wall, you're now Scottish. What do you reckon? Yeah? A beret? Oh, wrong side of the channel. Bye. I mean, come on. I think most of these things are quite logical, except people then want things to be codified in a way that there's always going to be exceptional cases where the codification doesn't fit. But basically, if you're born and bred in a country, that's your country, right? If you're born and bred in a country and also spent time in another country and split your life between the two, then maybe you're a dual national. If you're born and bred in a country and your parents were not born and bred there, but you've only known that country and only really speak that language, then you're probably from that country. Do you see what I mean? It's sort of like, you know, you're dual national if you've got a 50-50 split, right? If you spend half your life in Malaysia, half your life in Wales, one parent's Malaysian, one is Welsh, you can speak both Malay, maybe you can speak Welsh as well, then great, I'm half Malaysian, half Welsh. And I have both passports. I mean, come on, it ain't that difficult to figure out. Now, ethnicity and heritage is different, right? And we can all go down and play that game, because my folks back in the day, way back in the day, because as we've already established for 500 years, they seem to have never left a village called King Stanley in Gloucestershire. Very imaginative folk they were too. I can imagine they kind of ploughed things. I don't know, maybe they were like bigwigs in the town, but knowing my family, I don't think so. But hey, I could find something out. But way before that, the Parks, who latterly became the Parks of King Stanley, actually came over in the Norman Conquest. They were Duparc. So that means that they're technically Normans, which aren't even French. They might have come from Calais. But they, you know, actually originally were Norsemen who came from Denmark and Scandinavia and places. So we can all play the game of all those sort of, you know, ethnic heritage, genetic makeup, blah, 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 blah. If you're born in Britain, you've grown up your whole life in Britain, you know nothing but Britain, you're British, all right? Because it's that stuff that makes you part of a country, right? Now, if you're born in Britain, but your family's never spoken a word of English, because they're from Bangladesh and they only speak Bangladeshi. And then you went to a sort of faith school, so you never mixed with British kids. And every holiday you go off to Bangladesh, then it becomes a bit more debatable. OK, I get that. Which is why this whole idea of balkanised societies are so dangerous. Because all of a sudden you haven't got people coalescing around one country, around an identity. You know, they don't have that glue in common, which makes a nation a nation. So I think we need to examine whether concepts such as faith schools are a good idea, or letting people come and settle here who don't speak the language, because that is what creates these divisions and ridiculous topics. But as far as I'm concerned, for the vast majority of people, if you're born and bred in a nation and don't know anywhere else, that's your country. Done. All right, let's speak now to the brilliant Isabel Oakeshott. I love the bones of this woman. She's as British as they come. Or is she? Let's ask. Hi, Is, how are you doing?
Hello. Well, I mean, I can tell you that whilst I'm sitting here in the United Arab Emirates, I wouldn't dream of saying that I'm an Emirati.
Oh, I thought you'd become an Arab.
I mean, for all my best efforts at learning Arabic and, you know, doing a lot of sunbathing, I'm definitely not an Arab. And, you know, this, I know you said it's simple, but it is simple and it's also complicated. Yeah. But mostly it's pretty simple, isn't it? I mean, we mostly know what we are, and it's about where we grew up and where our fundamental loyalties lie and what our parents were and our culture and our values. And for most people, there's really only one answer to that question. And for quite a few people, there might be two, but there's generally not multiple answers.
No, exactly. And I think that, you know, we're having this sort of ridiculous conversation about my brother's wife. I've just messaged her saying you're going to have to tune into the show. She never listens, but I'll be like, you have to tune in this time because you are the top topic. Because her parents were from Zimbabwe, Rhodesia as it was called, and fled when it all got a bit tasty as young medics and had all their daughters here. And, you know, my brother's wife has never known anywhere else. The idea that she could be Zimbabwean is like crazy. Of course she's British. But yeah. It's, you know, you do get these cases, but there might be people, like I said, whose both parents are from Pakistan, who have only ever spoken Urdu in the house, who have been to a faith school, who support the Pakistani cricket team, spend all their holidays in Pakistan. And then you do suddenly go, OK, you were born here and you've got a British passport, but quite how British are you? Which is why we need to look at all these crazy issues of creating a fractured society by, for instance, here we go, look at this segue, for suddenly, I don't know, giving some random prisoner in Egypt British citizenship. I mean, it just goes from bad to worse, this story. We now know that 3 days before the hero's welcome, the red carpet, the gushing tweets and the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister of the land, all of those celebrities who bawled their eyes out down the camera, so worried about his welfare and his most brilliant poetry that he wrote about cats in a prison or something. Turns out that 3 days before he comes back to the hero's welcome, having never set foot here before, he's been moaning about being a victim of a Zionist campaign. I'd imagine his very first task when he lands on these shores is going to be to join a pro-Palestine march at this rate.
Massive sigh. I mean, in some ways, I'm glad this happened because it does cast a really strong spotlight on the issue of citizenship and how we dole it out. And if I can go back to the UAE example, since that's where I am in the Middle East, basically no incomers here qualify to become Emirati citizens. It is such a special status. It is reserved for the actual Emiratis. It is vanishingly rare for outsiders to ever get that citizenship. And I think it should be the same in the UK. We're dishing this out. We're showering out citizenship as if it's confetti. We ask people to sit sort of ridiculously easy tests after staying a few years in the UK, and they then get their citizenship. And I know quite a few people actually who've been through that process, and actually some of them are really proud of it, and they do feel that they truly belong in the UK. And that's all very nice and all very heartwarming, but it doesn't mean we should do it. It would be nice if being a British citizen had real cachet, that this was something truly precious and it was handed out only very, very sparingly and discerningly. And there is an extraordinary irony, isn't there, that this government led by, it's a Labour-led government, and the one before it, the Tories, have always gone on and on and on about, should I say, smaller political parties' failures over vetting. And here we have the ultimate vetting failure. And the consequences are massive. We're not talking about some random councillor who once said something a bit off colour on X or on Facebook or something. We're talking about a guy, this Egyptian El Fattah, who has said a series of truly horrendous things. Now, do I think we should imprison him? No, but there's no equivalence here, as some people are trying to suggest. People are trying to say, oh, well, look at all the people who criticised the imprisonment of Lucy Connolly for a few tweets, and now they're saying, oh, hell and high water to El Fattah. There's no equivalence whatsoever with those cases. Lucy Connolly is a British citizen who said one thing in the heat of the moment and withdrew it and had no history of doing anything wrong. And then you've got this absolute nutter who is ranting about killing loads of people, and we're rolling out the red carpet almost literally, describing it as a top government priority and celebrating. I mean, there's nothing at all in the same bracket about those two cases.
It's the thing that I find super. I mean, I kind of expect it of the government and all the rest of it. They've clearly had some sort of pretty energetic and assertive campaign behind this guy, and a load of muppets have jumped on the bandwagon and gone like, we must campaign to release it. And like because even, I must admit, when it comes to old Nazanin, who seems to be hero worshipped, I'm like, she's married to that geezer for like 6 months, and all of a sudden that becomes our top priority. I'm not saying that she did anything wrong or should have been imprisoned in Iran, but I don't have the same sort of feeling or need to beatify her like everyone else seems to. But what I don't understand is how all the celebrities get sucked into all of this. And I thought it'd be really interesting to set up some kind of gotcha. Do you know what I mean? I want to find some sort of agent out there who might be secretly a little bit right-wing and go like, I know, let's sort of, you know, give all these celebrities a script to read about something or the other and, you know, read it impassionately down the barrel of the camera with tears in their eyes, you know, the sort of overhyped, histrionic, you know, extra thespian presentation like all those Muppets did. And then at the end go, ha-ha, that was Myra Hindley's diaries. Do you know what I mean? How does that happen?
So I have been reflecting on this. I mean, I wouldn't say I've done a proper deep dive into it, but for all these celebrities to have got involved, I can't help feeling that there was a PR company. You know, somebody organised this and they organised it pretty professionally. I mean, you know, to get that many high-profile kind of A-lister actors and actresses to sign up to this. I mean, come on, it's pretty random. You know, this Egyptian. I mean, he's not really a household name, is he? It's not like, let's welcome back Prince Harry. You know, I think everyone could possibly have a view on that. But why would Emma Thompson know about El Fattah? Why would any of the other, Olivia Colman, who's pretty busy acting most of the time, get involved in this? It's got to be because some PR company was hired to organise a campaign, and this they did very well. They were very successful at it. And you know, the truth is that most people who wade into politics aren't professionals at it. You know, even you and I are sometimes guilty. Any commentator is, of rushing out an opinion on something that we haven't fully researched. It's very, very easy to do. I mean, I'm the first to admit that I've done that a few times, had my fingers burnt, got a few things wrong. How much more perilous is that if you're not of a political background? Your actual job is to be an actor and you're really, really good at it, and you just wade into something like this. They won't have done their due diligence. Quite obviously they didn't.
But this is it. They wet themselves over any opportunity to be able to pose as being far more virtuous than we are, far more superior, far more knowing and learned and kind and well-travelled. And they're just performing lapdogs, a lot of them. They're just narcissists. And like I said, I'd love it if a gotcha was set up to trap them all doing something ridiculous. And you're right. This geezer, whoever old El Fattah is, has had a very well-oiled machine behind him to be able to get the big wigs of the former government in the Conservative Party all signing things, from Boris Johnson to Liz Truss saying he must come out of prison, to this government and all those celebs as well. That isn't just like Mrs Miggins sitting there writing a little letter to a local MP. There's something else going on here. And if anyone's going to find out, it's going to be you. It is.
I mean, this whole absolute shambles for that is what it is. I think it's such a big moment. It isn't ultimately about this one individual, this El Fattah. It is about who we are and the kind of people we want coming here. And that is in a sense, for many people in the UK, that is the number one concern at the moment. Who are we? And who are we welcoming into our country? And who are we, the taxpayer, supporting to come and live in our country? And this kind of sums it all up, doesn't it? You know, this happens to be a very high-profile case with a load of celebrities. But each and every day, there are dozens, probably hundreds of equivalents of El Fattah. Not that they've all said those bad things, but that we know nowhere near enough about before granting them the right to remain in our country.
Oh, there'll be people who come over on them boats who make El Fattah look like Mother Teresa, for crying out loud.
Sure.
I mean, talking about that, I'm going to squeeze a few things all together, but one of the stories that I want to talk to you about is the idea that asylum seekers should be tagged. Now, I agree with the sentiment of this, but unfortunately, I'm just not that kind. I don't think they should be tagged. I think if they're put on military bases especially, they shouldn't be allowed to leave the perimeter fence, especially given that here we go, yet another day, yet another grim story. We hear them every single day now. Usually it's about the molestation or assault of little girls. Well, this one is an Afghan man who's allegedly attacked hospital staff with a weapon because he couldn't get an appointment. Went in there, bashed up the counter, assaulted people inside the building. A woman ran out and said, call the police, bleeding from the head. Apparently he'd come back with a crowbar because they wouldn't give him an appointment. I mean, for crying out loud. We're just like, come on in. We're such a welcoming nation. You know, make it your own. I don't even think that when they're put on these military bases especially, I don't think they should be allowed to leave them. I'm sorry, that's just what I think.
At what point do our totally idiotic leaders recognise that there's just a teeny bit of a pattern here, folks? You know, there is, of course, there are plenty of white British people that do terrible things. It's not about race, but it is about undocumented, unvetted people coming into our country, many of whom are very, very ill-suited to living here. They don't have the cultural equivalents. They have come from awful places where they've been traumatized. We know this, you know, having worked on this documentary that we did through Talk, The Undercover Migrant. You know, I'm afraid the type of people in the migrant camps of Calais and Dunkirk waiting to come here, there are an awful lot of hard drug users, people with very violent pasts who are not ashamed to show off about that, and they are coming our way. And you just wonder, what's it going to take for the government to wake up on this? You know, I wrote a piece for today's Telegraph saying the UK is a tinderbox at the moment. It is absolutely ready to blow. And I don't know what it is. I hope it doesn't happen, but I don't know what it is that will trigger it. But there are too many people who don't know how else to express their frustration. They don't have platforms like you and I. They're not wealthy to hire lawyers or whatever it else is that they think is broken in Britain. You know, wealthy people, better off people can hire people to either to challenge it or they can pay their way out of what they don't like. But there are many, many people in hard-pressed communities that actually don't know what else they can do apart from go on a riot. That's what worries me.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's going to blow. We all know it's going to blow. Finally, let's see if we can end on a lighter note and talk about the New Year's honours list. We had this amazing call earlier. Karen had phoned up about her sister, Laura Gardner, who she said had also received a New Year's honour this year. And it was amazing. She's the second only nurse after Florence Nightingale to get this honour. She was medevac in, you name it, she's been there. Ebola, the people leaving Afghanistan, I mean, everywhere. She's dedicated her whole life putting herself in harm's way from the moment her daughter was 3 months old, was one of her early deployments, and has been one of the only theatre qualified nurses who's operated in the most horrific conditions. And she was telling me all about her sister Laura Gardner, and honestly, it's making me want to well up now. And what annoys me so much about the way we now do New Year's honours is I want to read the story of Laura Gardner, and I want her sitting there and being interviewed. I don't want someone getting a gong because they're blimmin' famous. And I got no problem with Cynthia What's-Her-Chops, you know, the one with the long fingernails in that Wicked thing. But, you know, has she been part of Medevac? Has she resuscitated someone in a war zone? No. I mean, great, she might be a brilliant actress or musical theatre performer who's done this for how many decades, but by this standard alone, when's your gong coming, Isabel? You've been a journalist for quite a while. It's time for you to get one.
Ain't no one going to give me any gongs. I have this rant every year, Alex, so I didn't know you and I agreed on this. I also think I probably got it from my parents, who also used to have this rant. I don't understand why actors and actresses, although I think the woke thing now is to call them all actors, I don't understand why they need honours. I don't get that. What is it? They're just pretending to be someone else. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, they're entertaining, but ultimately they're pretending to be someone else. That's it. That's the height of their achievement. I mean, yes, they can be incredibly talented, but why every year are so many of them represented in the honours list, as opposed to the type of people like you've described, of which there are tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands in the UK doing unsung real work. And it might not necessarily be life-saving. It could be incredible, I don't know, discoveries, inventions, creations, even, you know, employment opportunity creation, our great heads of industry. And yet we give all these gongs to people that just prance around pretending to be someone else. I don't know what I'm missing here.
We give a gong to someone for being famous when being famous is probably the most blessed and privileged position you could have in life. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, you get first class flights and a massive mansion and everyone sort of, you know, swoons over you when you go into a restaurant. Have a gong on top of that. It just, seriously, it makes no sense. Oh, I'm done with a lot of it.
That would also apply to footballers and other famous people, again, because they're footballers or whatever. That's wonderful, but do they need a gong for it? They already get 300 grand a week. I mean, pretty good.
No, I agree with you. It cheapens it. It cheapens the whole thing when it's done on who's the most popular celeb at the moment. Do you know, if it was up to me, you would get a gong because your journalism is second to none and you bring things to the public attention which really do change government decisions and do change the course of our country's history. So if anyone deserves anything, I'd give one to you. Arise, Lady Isabel. Thank you ever so much, my darling. Are you doing New Year's Eve over in the UAE?
I'm hoping for fireworks, although I have to say it's quite cold here. So, yeah, who knows what kind of an evening it's going to be.
Oh, mate, it's like minus something out there. We've got a proper cold snap, so enjoy where you are. Lovely seeing you, my gorgeous one, and Happy New Year. Right, we're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we're going to bend our minds towards all things environmental, because what has been revealed is possibly something that could be Britain's biggest ever fly tip. It's in blooming Gloucester, isn't it? That's after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. And I promise I didn't fix up this show to be all about Gloucester, but it seems to have fallen that way. Because I saw this story earlier. Didn't know we were going to do it, but Jodes is like, let's get on this one. Because there's this massive fly tip. You saw that one, which is people had dumped a load of rubbish in a sort of dried up river in Oxfordshire, I think it was. And it looked horrific. There were people sort of, you know, wandering around on top of it, like, you know, little kids in Slumdog Millionaire. And you're like, blimey, what's gone on there? How did no one notice? That's vile. Anyway, turns out that something else has been unearthed, for want of a better phrase, which is a vast fly tip that could be the biggest of its kind in Britain. It's been spewing toxic fumes across a family farm for 7 years. And when I read it, I was like, you didn't. Because I know this place, the Countryside Adventure Park at Over Farm in Gloucestershire, OVER. If you're not from there, you call it Over. Us people from there like to say Uva. But a massive dump. It's like more than 2 acres in size. That makes it 10 times bigger than this notorious fly tip in Kidlington, that one that was, the dried up riverbed. I just can't believe it. I've been going to that farm market for ages. It's a brilliant farm market, I'll tell you. The produce is like, chef's kiss brilliant. But it breaks my heart. And they've tracked who essentially owns this site, some geezer, Mr. Gorman, Marshall Gorman, who runs a local driveway company. There's been a lot of people who've bought a bit of land and thought, I know how to make some money quickly. I'll just say, I'll come clear your house, I'll come clear your building site, I'll come clear your whatever. I'll charge you, £1,000 for that load. Then they just go and drop it somewhere. This has got to stop. Let's speak now to Ben Pyle, co-founder of Climate Debate UK. I mean, look, honestly, Ben, I can't find myself often getting very exercised about climate change, but this stuff really does exercise me. Littering, rubbish, pollution, making the world just a nasty, miserable, stinky, unhygienic place really grinds my gears. How are people getting away with this stuff?
Good evening. I'm not entirely sure how they're getting away with it. I mean, I think absolutely everyone agrees with you that great big piles of stinking and steaming rubbish not being properly disposed of is a bad thing, and it needs to be understood how people are doing this. I think we need to look at the policies that may have created the kind of opportunities for criminals to sort of cut the corners that proper operators, proper waste disposal firms and outfits, adhere to. And that requires us to cast our minds back to the 2000s, when European landfill directives instructed Britain, the national government and local governments, to divert as much waste from landfill as they can, and they imposed fines on local authorities of about £100 a tonne and rising, I think, in order to be able to do that. And many of those local authorities were cock a hoop about that. They love doing stuff like that. They love taking orders from on high over responding to people's needs. And this is the most important thing. There was a real transformation in the relationship between people and local government after that kind of intervention, after that kind of policy. In the past, it was understood as a good thing that there were public services and you could get things disposed of. But then, the local authorities started getting very aggressive about litter, fining people for very small infractions. And that's created almost like kind of mafia style opportunities where so if a local authority probably is being offered by companies that they haven't properly investigated cut price rates to dispose of this rubbish by companies that will probably turn into vapor as soon as they're investigated. And if those companies are making tenner a ton or whatever, then do the math. 500,000 tons is suddenly a huge amount of money for that criminal enterprise. So I think we really need to look at that again. And then unfortunately, the more that authorities have clamped down on ordinary people's use of waste disposal services, the more fly tipping there has been, not just in these great big areas like the one near Kidlington in Oxfordshire or this one in Gloucestershire, just people dumping stuff at the end of at the end of people's drives or on lay-bys and on people's fields and stuff like that. It's a terrible thing. It's a bad thing. Nobody thinks it's a good thing. But when we made it easy for people to dispose of waste, there was less of that sort of.
This is it. You make such an important point. I hadn't really thought about it myself, but where I live now, I have 7 different bins. Yeah. And it's not just the 7 different bins. They all go out random weeks. So, you have to Google every week what bin week is it, or see what your neighbours are doing, because someone's probably printed it and put it on a magnet on their fridge. But then if you've got cardboard, but you can't put the Velcro flap down on your cardboard disposal, then they won't take it. And I'm like, well, who does that help? Do you know what I mean? Take the blimmin' cardboard. I don't care if I've got a stack of 2 meters high. Take the blimmin' cardboard already. And I find myself regularly going down to the tip because of this, because I'm an upstanding citizen. Also, I got a good mate at the tip called Wesley. He's my boy. Shout out to Wesley at the Cotswold tip. He always shows me the good stuff that's been discarded by people. And I go, all right, thanks, Wes, and take that home. But you're right. If you make it difficult for people to follow rules, don't be surprised if they decide the easier way is to go with the geezer who drives by, knocks on your door one day and goes, oh, I see you got a load of cardboard out there. Local authority ain't going to take that, are they? Oh, give me 15 quid. I'll get rid of that for you. But all right, son, thanks for that. That's a weight off my mind. But there is this sort of religiosity, this sort of super puritanical, punitive approach to public services now.
Yeah, and it's all around the green agenda. And, I'll repeat the point. I might be sceptical of climate change policy and the green agenda in general. But again, we all want there to be a nice local environment. We don't want waste to be piled up in fields. We don't want it falling into rivers. And we don't want these fires that turn up in these kind of dumps. Because and this is the other problem with recycling policy and green waste disposal policy, is that very often there are outbreaks of fires. That's partly because of batteries and it's partly because of nefarious things. So batteries can if they short circuit, they can create a huge amount of heat and they can set fire to everything. And some people just set fire, arsonists and what have you, and they're insurance jobs. And of course there's the I think there's the potential for compost to ignite by itself. But so it turns out that we want to avoid, according to green rules, we want to avoid burning waste where actually we can recycle waste into energy quite efficiently. But it turns out that if you store, mountains of paper, mountains of old clothes and old mattresses and stuff like that in waiting for it to be processed, that the fires that they can generate are worse for air pollution than controlled high temperature incineration, which is very, very low in terms of its toxicity. But the problem is the Greens don't like it because it creates extra CO2 emissions.
Oh, so we end up with they make a rod for their own backs, and mine and yours as well. Let's quickly move on to another subject, because then I've got to let you go. But I want to cover this quickly, which is Ed Miliband is planning to offer grants for solar panels and heat pumps worth up to £13 billion in an attempt to create zero-bill homes. The technical director at Octopus Energy, Nigel Banks, told The Times that 1 million homes with strong insulation also could reduce their bills to zero if they installed solar panels, batteries and a heat pump. I'm with Octopus Energy. They call me up every 5 blooming seconds trying to flog me solar panels. The thing is about this, and I don't know how this is going to work out, I can imagine that when it's grants to have solar panels and heat pumps, it'll be the government give you a little bit and you've got to pay for the rest. So to me, and I don't know, I could be wrong about this, to me it seems like wealthy people are going to be able to get their bills down to zero, but if you're too poor to be able to pay the rest of the money, you've got to pay full whack and be subsidising this.
Absolutely. I think it's amazing that they will say that this plan that will give people free energy, zero bills, is going to cost 13 billion. Well, it's not free then, is it? It's 13 billion pounds, and that works out. If you build 1 million of these, if you give people a million people of these grants, then that's £500 that everyone else is going to be paying for those grants. And there's been a lot of these schemes, and you put your finger on it when you said you get called up by energy companies all the time. There have been, by my count, about 6 of the policies of this kind which attempt to throw free money at households to make them conform to the green agenda. In 2009, we had Gordon Brown's Green New Deal and the Great British Refurb, he called it, and that was going to insulate everyone's loft and everyone's walls and so on and so forth. And then the next government had a Green Deal, where it wasn't a very original scheme. And then we had a couple in the late 2010s. Then Boris Johnson's government had, I think it was called the Green Home Grant Scheme, and that lasted just 7 months. But the public just turns their nose up at this stuff, because even if it's seemingly £13,000 of free money after getting cold calls every 2 days from other fly-by-night companies that are set up to service the government's agenda. Well, they just realised that the numbers don't stack up. I mean, people need to these policymakers need to take their physics lessons
If someone
again,
wanted to come up
because
to
there's
me
no
and
such thing as free energy.
If someone came to me, girl, we're going to whack some solar panels on the top of your roof, it won't cost you anything, then you won't have to pay bills, I'd be like, be my guest. I just have a feeling that would be too good to be true. Ben, thank you ever so much. The brilliant Ben Powell, co-founder of the Climate Debate UK. We're going to take a short break now, then we're going to find out why do so many publicists quit Harry and Meghan? I mean, it's mental. It works out as 2 every 12 months. They're like binning it. There's a gazillion now who have basically decided that they're intolerable to work for. We're going to be discussing that and the honour system with royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
All right there, let's get stuck into what's going on at Team Sussex. Welcome aboard, Richard Fitzwilliams, royal commentator. Hi there, Richard. Why is there such a huge turnover of staff? Apparently 12 people have now left in 5 years in the publicity department. That doesn't really sound like they're particularly good employers. What's going on?
Well, what's going on is that Harry and Meghan very clearly are absolutely desperate, as you know, to be A-listers in California. One of their problems, and I've been very puzzled by this over the years since they stepped down as senior working royals, is whose advice they actually take. For example, I mean, the loss of James Holt, who's their longest the serving aide, he apparently is remaining, though, as an advisor, and previously Meredith Main was also going. We heard this the other day. She was the one who was seen with Tobin Andre, who's, of course, has the ear of King Charles and possibly set up or helped to set up the meeting between Prince Harry and his father. The fact of the matter are, however, as you say, there's so many who, I wonder, would work for them. And this dates back, of course, before the Oprah interview, because, as you remember, allegations strongly denied by Meghan appeared in the Times that she had bullied members of palace staff. And subsequently, when they've been in the United States, these have reappeared in the Hollywood Reporter and also in Vanity Fair. Meghan, to quote, a dictator in high heels, thought that she'd be impossible to work for and so forth. So this, whereas obviously members of staff have been unable to speak out, there's very little doubt that this is considered part and parcel, given the vast turnover of staff are working for them. I would love to know, for example, who on earth suggested that Meghan put that dreadful twerking video up. I mean, the most vulgar thing that I could conceive. I thought it would have been a setup, however, that it was false. Whose advice do they listen to? So one wonders, does the turnover also mean a frustration at a lack of PR nous?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you're advising someone, if your job is to say to someone, look, this is where you've got to do things to present yourself well, and they decide to do completely the opposite, you can only manage that for so long before you start pulling out your hair. Although it does seem, James Holt was there for, quite a long time, actually, wasn't he? And that he said that, working with him being a great privilege, that Meghan was a kindred spirit, that he's really sad to be leaving, but he's got to because he wants to bring his family back to the UK. Dude, have you seen what's going on in the UK? Why aren't you staying in California, for crying out loud? But it's not a particularly edifying pattern, is it? Before I let you go, Richard, have you got any positive stories from the honour system? I don't care about the celebs, the sports stars, the actors, the ex-politicians. I like the earthy stories, the sort of real-life heroes. Do you know, have you sort of clued yourself up yet on who might have honours, who fits that particular metric?
Well, I would say the honours are just in its defence. If you look at the way that the honours system's changed over the last 20 years, it's really been completely reformed, because what's important, and I mean, a lot of people listening to this might know of someone in their local community who ought to be honoured, something that a London-centric organisation might not, and they're boasting this list. Over 50% are not from the southeast. And then you can always write to or email the honours committee of the Cabinet Office, and it's a very, very interesting fact that you get two honour systems of 1,200 names. Now, I mean, you mentioned the sports stars. We didn't used to reward them. Fred Perry in the 1930s got nothing. When we won the World Cup, only the manager and captain were honoured in the 1960s. That's completely changed with the way our Olympians and Paralympians have done so brilliantly and so on. But when it comes to ordinary people who've done something for the local community, or it's come to someone who's achieved something, and also, and this is very important, this is where the bent is now, to have a philanthropic aspect to it. So in fact, it's not just the day job or something you've achieved, it's also what you've done for others. Not in all cases, but in some. The thing I like about the system is it has grades, and that means if you get, say, an MB and then an OB and CB, etc., there's always an incentive to do more that's good. Whereas there are civil servants that I might not like in this, and this always tends to be the case, that people will have pluses and minuses. It's just overall, I think that, being given an honour at Buckingham Palace or Windsor or wherever, I mean, that is something that really marks someone up.
Yeah, I think basically, to me, the honour system should be about recognising people who otherwise would not get that recognition. So if you're an Olympic athlete, you got your gold medals, you've got your applause, your name's up in lights. Same with if you're an actress who's won Oscars. I think the honour system should more be about your average, not your average Joe, but people who otherwise don't get that sort of acknowledgement. Richard, thank you ever so much. The brilliant Richard Fitzwilliams. Now, I wanted to leave a chunky time at the end of the show to speak to you all about what does it mean to be British, because the messages have been coming in thick and fast. I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I'm going to read some of them out. But if you want to discuss this topic with me, the number is 0344 499 1000. I'll speak to you in a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Righto, let's scramble through some of these messages now. Got to squeeze a lot into the last 9 minutes. Like Isabel, I have spent time, not as a tourist, in Dubai. As Isabel said, no white people there consider themselves an Emirati, says Sarah, near Plymouth. Well, quite. Last time I checked, Isabel was definitely British. She doesn't seem to have morphed into an Arab. Barbara in London says, I am dual British-US. I don't consider myself American, but I am a US citizen. I'm ethnically British, just as I'd not expect a Polish person with a British passport to consider themselves British. They would still regard themselves as Polish, but with British passports. There you go. I have non-white friends who arrived here after being adopted. They were born in Sri Lanka, Vietnam, elsewhere, but are no less British than me. I was born in Liverpool. Well, exactly. Alex, to be British, I love this one. I'm going to contest some of this, though. Mark in Coventry. Alex, to be British is anyone who embraces British culture. Yes. Moans about the weather. Yes. Stands in queues. Yes, 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 yes. That seems to be a problem when it comes to people who can't get doctor's appointments, doesn't it? From certain countries. Has a pint in the pub. Yes, although, you know, if you don't drink alcohol, you might still qualify. Celebrates Christian holidays, even if not Christian. Yes, are respectful to all people. Yes, treat women as equals. Yes, cream teas. OK, you're pushing it now. This is getting a bit quaint. A lot of people in the country don't do the cream teas things. Village green cricket. Again, you know, you're talking about a few rural shires here, not like, you know, the industrial heartland of Sheffield. Watch people kick a bag of wind around a pitch. Well, I'm from Gloucester. I suppose it is. We do kick it a bit around a pitch. But anyway, I get your point. Vast majority of it I agree with. Although when it gets to the cream teas bit, I'm like, it's very British, I know, but I don't think that's a qualifying factor. Here we go. Mick says, I was born in England. My dad and granddad were Irish. Both fought in the World Wars. My granddad was born under the British flag. Am I British? Why are you asking? Of course you are, son. I got mates who are of a different heritage, but they're as British as us, but... says Martin. I'm guessing that's Martin from the Forest of Dean. Hi, Alex. When people migrate... Are people in the Forest of Dean British? That's a question. Hi, Alex. When people migrate from England to another country, they're known as expats. Why don't we ever refer to people who come here as expats? Well, we can do. They're not British, are they? If you migrated from another country, you might live here, but you're an expat. Rob from Morecambe says, I lived in Spain for 25 years. I was married to a Spanish lady for a few years and had a son. I trace my own lineage back to Robert the Bruce, and I'm British through and through, but my son is Spanish. And I've always said that, as he still lives there. But if he came here, he would, to me, still be Spanish, not British. Well, yes, if he sort of speaks Spanish as his first language, is born and brought up and grown up in Spain and celebrates when the Spanish football team win, dude, you got yourself a Spanish son there. And then Elaine says, people are trying to confuse the Britishness debates with the English Scottishness. Anyone can be British if they were born here, but they'll never be English unless they have English parents and grandparents. Ooh, that's another layer of complexity, because basically... there are a lot of, when you see like there's a big Sikh community up in Scotland, and when you see like, the grand turbans and the Scottish accent, I'm like, that's a thing of beauty. I love that combo. What a brilliant megamix. But if they were born and brought up in Scotland and sing Flower of Scotland, and love all the Scottish stuff and are making haggis, and I'm afraid in my mind, they're Scottish. But there's a difference between saying, I am British, my country where I live and where I'm from, and, what I call my land that I'd fight for, but my heritage is, or my ethnic ancestry is. Like I said, you trace me back, have to go really far back, but you do get the Normans. That don't make me a Viking. It doesn't suddenly make me a Scandinavian. I know I've got the blonde hair and stuff, still British. Right, let's speak to Paul in Liverpool. Hi, Paul.
I think you are the Viking, actually, Alex. A fantastic Viking.
I've never even been to Denmark, so I think that's stretching it a little bit. But, I'd like some sort of big hammer and some sort of furry hat with horns.
Yeah, I think you'd look good. But I think British, what makes you British is, you get along with people, you get involved, you respect the country. That's got to be the number one. I mean, if you don't walk out your front door and respect this place as if it's, you know, you live and die because, you know, if you have a heart attack, a helicopter come out of the sky, pick you up, take you to hospital, everyone waiting to fix you and send you home with no bill. I mean, this is a good place. I mean, there's loads of crap going on, of course there is, you know what I mean? But the problem is, if you don't respect the country, get involved, you know, chat to your neighbours, be friendly, blah, blah, simple stuff, then you know, how can you be?
Well, exactly. Well, no, this is the thing. We're getting a complicated realm, though, if we sort of say, because I was about to say maybe it comes down to if you really identify as British, as in you love this country and you want to be it, that makes you British. But then when we have that conversation about if you identify as a man or a woman, then we start entering a different realm of biological truth. But this is where I think we just need to two separate categories. What is the nation where you live, where you're brought up and that you represent if someone called you up to, you know, play a certain sport? And what's your ethnic heritage? There can be two separate categories. I think it's dead simple. Paul, thank you ever so much. I'm going to squeeze another call in because people really want to chit-chat about this one. Let's speak to Alan in Suffolk. Hi, Alan.
Hi. Hello, Alex.
Hiya.
I'm English, British. I can trace my ancestry back for 900 years, so I think that qualifies me. I have 3 of my various grandchildren born in Hong Kong. They have British passports. They're not Chinese, and they've lived. My eldest grandson is 13 now, and he does not describe himself as Chinese. He is English. His parents are English. They've got British passports. Now, as far as I'm concerned, anyone that just is born here doesn't make them have a right to stay here. I will be really provocative, and we both know the answer because it's none. But why the hell didn't Blair have a referendum to say, do the people of Britain want to change the basis of our country, the structure of it?
Yeah. No, I agree. I got a good question for you then. I've got a good question right back at you.
Go on then.
Is Kemi Badenoch British?
No.
Yeah, I think she is, in my mind, she is sort of technically British because she sounds British and she's been here a blooming long time. But she'll always turn around and say, I was born and bred in Nigeria.
Well,
she came over here as well. Was she a teen or something when she came over?
I've been to Nigeria about 35 times on business. I can, rather like you with Kenya, you know the other side of the country, of the continent as well. You try going down to Nigeria and say, oh, I'd like to come here and live and, house me, feed me, give me free health care. I think we both know what the answer to that would be, don't you?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, no, quite. Exactly. This is my point. If I went back to Ghana and sort of lived there, I loved Ghana, and I turned and I said, I'm a Ghanaian, they would find it hilarious. They'd think it was quite cute, to be honest.
They certainly would.
They would laugh me out the room. They'd be like, all right, whatever you say. But mind you, what they would have also done, because I used to be able to speak a little bit of Twi, but I also used to be able to sing in Twi, because I just memorised all of the popular songs, and I used to do karaoke, and people would be like, what the hell is going on? What's that white girl doing, singing in our local language? But even though, you know, they found it lovely that I was honouring their country and their culture. But if I said to them, I'm a Ghanaian, they'd be like, no, you're not. And if I then said, oh, actually, you know, I'm going to have some kids and I'm not going to work and will the government pay for me? No,
You've got it.
They wouldn't have done.
You've got it.